Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning. We can. Hi, Denise.
Okay.
How are you?
Hi, I'm great.
Okay. We don't have anyone else but you and I, so we'll hold on for 10 minutes or so.
No
It's
problem.
you and I are early
Okay.
people. Thank you.
All right.
Joanne,
Hello. Can you hear me?
it's David Bowen.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
I can. I was having trouble yesterday. Hey, we'll chat later, right?
Yeah. It's funny we see each other right now.
I know. But good. Okay, well, I'm going to mute because I just was testing my speakers there. So,
I have to do my phone. I'm at the airport.
oh goodness.
I tried to get on my laptop, but it wouldn't let me on.
Okay. All right, we're waiting for those of you online. I think we're waiting for 2 more members, and then we'll get started in a minute or so. So please hold on.
Denise is on.
Denise is on, yeah, but we need.
Yeah, I know.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Catherine.
Erica's walking up. I
Okay.
saw her in the window.
Thank you.
No problem.
Hopefully this isn't too much background noise for you guys. I'm at the airport.
Oh, so you have a motion?
No, these are from.
That
how they-
announcement from the mayor, right? They turned that
how
up louder,
they,
right?
They don't have them in here, but this is how they would end up being.
Oh,
This is
oh,
last, so
last
that
week's,
each,
yeah.
that the minutes will now look like this. They did not look like. this
Oh, I
before.
got you. Right, yeah.
Right, we are live on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Director, do you want to, or do you want me to talk about the motion form about this? So that,
Yes, sure.
okay.
Well, all right, I'm happy to.
Okay.
Just reiterating what Michael.
Yeah,
shared.
but just as soon as we go.
Yeah,
We'll hold on for Erica, just because the person who makes the motion is gonna have to add the context or the statement, so.
I'll also make a agenda.
Do you want to look at these? Councilman, this all makes sense when she talked about, we're gonna, the minutes kind of now looking like, motion forms.
Okay.
And they will, also relate to the fact that as we make a motion, we might say like, we're approving this lot split because of, it fits the context and like a couple of things about the rationale and they'll
Okay.
end up in there. But that's the last meeting. Doesn't quite look
Yeah,
the same.
I wasn't at that meeting,
Yeah.
so this will be,
Morning.
can we pass the minutes with 3 people?
Well,
Denise is
Denise-
on.
Oh,
Actually, I think Erica was here too.
Yes.
okay.
Weren't you at the last one? Yeah, she was.
Okay.
So I think we're okay. All right, we're gonna call the meeting to order. So thank you, everyone online or here. Going to turn it over to the director to open the meeting and read the preamble.
Thank you. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law and section 101.021, the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the city planning department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Recusals from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Calling users can unmute by using star. All meeting activities being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through proper channels have been considered. We've also received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter. Proper channels for comments are listed below. Communication with members of this body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by the stated deadline are collected by city planning staff and disseminated to members prior to the scheduled meeting. And I would like to invite those please be yourselves. Getting quite a bit of feedback. We will help you. And then I'd like to make one director's note before we jump into the agenda and turn it over to the chair. It's really critical as we review all these agenda items that we provide rationale during the discussion portion of the meeting, as well as really critical for motions. And so as you make a motion, please create a statement around why and what their rationale is. We're starting to document that rationale for the record as part of our motion forms, so that we can be really clear about the purpose and the intention behind those motions. So we would really appreciate your cooperation with that. With that, I'll turn it over to the chair.
Okay. I'll say one thing before we call the meeting to order. I think in that regard, you'll see that the minutes that before we approve them are kind of in that form, which will be a kind of motion form as the way that they're organized as we approve the minutes. For commission members, since I cannot make a motion as the chair, as you make a motion, it can be as simple as this lot split meets context, a few comments, or if it's demolition, a little bit of the rationale. I don't think that in this regard it's to be exhaustive. It's just to give some context to why that will end up in the minutes for this that provides consistency. So the responsibility though lies on whoever makes the motion. We can add to it, or whoever makes the second. I think what we can ask is if anybody would like to add anything, that would be good too, so that we'll put that into the record as long as the person who makes the motion is okay with it as a process. So any questions before we jump in about that? All right, Michael, call the roll.
Anthony,
Present.
Downing,
Present.
Blucher, Curry,
Present.
Ray Scott,
Present.
Slide.
Present.
Thank you. First item is to actually approve the minutes from the last meeting. I think, the councilman is the only one who was not here, who will abstain from the vote. We have the minutes in front of us. They were sent in advance. So we'll need a motion for the minutes.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Second. Motion and a second. Any other comments or additions? If not, call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes,
Curry,
Yes.
McCray, Scott.
Abstain. I was not there as well.
I think we're okay with passing them with an abstention or two. Go ahead. Did you say Curry? Yes.
Sorry.
Did you get everyone?
Yeah, I got it.
All right.
I'll be slightly abstaining.
Yeah.
right.
Abstain.
Abstain. Motion carries even with abstentions. since We have a quorum. Lot splits and consolidations is the first item. Permanent parcel number 004-17-082 and 81. This is at 2444 and 2450 Professor Avenue. Wesley Harper, are you here to present this one?
Yes, good morning.
Okay. I just going to clarify, since we have a conditional use coming, which is also a public hearing, that as a more matter of process, we don't normally swear someone in or take comment. Are we okay with that? In order? Okay. All right, go ahead, Wesley.
Thank you. Good morning, Wes Harper, Horton Harper Architects, and here to present a lot split for 2 existing parcels into 4 parcels. The new addresses that we'd be working on here is 2446 and 2448 Professor. We're just south of Jefferson Avenue.
Wait,
north
wait,
of-
Wait, that's not,
I have a question. Say that again, because
not.
we have 2444 and 2450. Are those at different property?
Yeah, those are the existing addresses that would stay the same, and then these 2 new addresses that are listed here are the new addresses.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll go with that, and we're gonna ask staff to just rectify sort of this, but go ahead, we understand.
Okay, go to the next slide, please. So the existing context, here we have 2 multifamily existing homes. The one to the left here is an existing 3-unit home, which is, I think it was built in 2017. And then to the right, in that same image, is a duplex, which obviously sits in the front of the lot. So both of these lots have empty rear yards. They're quite deep in depth. And so we're proposing splitting those deep lots in the rear and adding 2-unit townhome apartments, excuse me. The image at the top right shows the context to the north. It's the Veterans Post, which is south of Jefferson. And then at the photo at the bottom right is the current parking lot for the newer triplex that was built in 2017. Next. So generally, this is the existing site layout right now. You can see we have 2 existing homes in the front, and then deep rear yards that have been cleared of existing homes over the past handful of years. Next. Here's the proposed site plan, which shows the 2-unit apartment buildings in the back. This site plan and configuration is kind of been a work in progress with the Block Club and Economic Development Committee in Tremont. So we originally started with 2 3-unit buildings. I think there was even a plan for 1 6-unit building. So we've been able to cut a few units and then also make them 2 structures. It still works for the developer. The 9 surface parking spaces that we have is a 1-to-1 parking ratio for the units. We actually eliminated a couple parking spaces to have more green space in the back. That was a request of city planning. And so this, has been through a process to make it a better project, I think. We'd be utilizing the existing driveway that is there for 2450 Professor. We'd actually be eliminating a driveway and curb cut for 2444 Professor. So we're actually adding to the possible on-street parking for this project. Next. And here's just a general view of those units. It would be in the rear. Both buildings are exactly the same. They're simply mirrored upon the property line between them. And so with that, I would open it up to any questions or comments.
I have a question.
Arthur, please.
The 2444 that would lose the driveway, that's a double or a single family home?
It's a double.
So I guess just to my colleagues, there's an existing 5-spot parking for 2450. We're adding 4 spaces, reducing a driveway, and then adding 4 more units. I guess I'm not trying to be like the parking lot guy, but it seems like that's like pushing a good number of cars onto the street for parking in a neighborhood where street parking is sort of at a premium. So I want to, I guess, discuss that and understand what the ramifications would be as far as like a zoning variance. Is that sufficient off-street parking, or would they require a variance for this plan as well?
If I may, we have a 1-to-1 parking ratio for all 4 of these buildings with the 9 parking spaces, which does not require a variance.
I have a question too. So question, is this actually a consolidation? So will this end up being one owner of this entire development?
It is one owner, but city planning typically, if I'm not mistaken, and plats and surveys would rather have one building per parcel. And so in this situation, we typically split them up into individual buildings.
I mean, I'm not sure if I agree with that, which is why I asked. In this instance, these are rental, right?
Yes.
Yeah, these are not for sale product. There are a lot of issues around maintenance and kind of future issues for me relative to how today you might document easements and future issues should these parcels be sold. Does that make sense? If it's not documented today and you can go ahead and sell these off down the line, there are real concerns for me about who has access and who doesn't later, not today. And so I think for me, this is a sense of like, it's one way or the other, which is either you've got to go to the expense of really documenting the long-term access easement and snow removal, et cetera, of the parceled off parcels, or this is one parcel today with one owner that acts like a multi kind of unit, multi-building development. And if you choose to split them later, then you've got to deal with those access issues. So maybe you could comment on that.
Yeah, all of that would be documented in the easement language. If you were more comfortable having that prior to approving them.
I mean, yes, because we're
develop
really
around
talking
to
about
that
4
type of
parcels, right? These are 4 parcels. 2 of them are flag parcels. Well, actually, technically, I'll say 3, because in order for 244 to have access long-term, they're going to need to be guaranteed access to the drive that sits a house away from them. So I don't know if you understand the issue. It's a
I
real
understand the
concern.
issue.
Yeah.
I understand the issue.
Go ahead.
I think they're trying to avoid the variance issue, so it's zone 2 family. So rather than townhomes, they were going to do parcels on each lot. So they didn't run into a use variance. the shared parking solution.
And there's no variance issue with 2 units behind that sit as accessory dwellings?
They're on separate lots. It's two approved lots.
A real loophole right there. So it's one or the other for me then. I mean, either this gets approved with the condition that staff really, before they sign off on it, needs to see the long-term easement access, maintenance of all 4 parcels, should they be sold. So that would be I think it's either the staff really needs to see that in advance of the split, which could be in the motion, or you consider one parcel, one owner, a kind of a development. But I see you're trying to kind of get through differently. So, any thoughts on that, Wesley?
Yeah, I'd be happy to work with staff. I don't even know if it's necessarily, an issue to configure it differently. This is just historically what we've done. Now, maybe since it's a rental, it maybe changes the thinking a little bit. I could see that perspective. So I think we're flexible in how this can be done. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if it weren't rental, we would require it. That's why I'm asking it. You know, if you were selling all 4 units, we would absolutely require before we approved this that we would know all those things, right? The issue is that it's rental, and we know long-term that those will become issues. So, so I guess what I'm asking, is that your preference to stay as is and require that you deal with those things before staff signs off on it? Or do you want to consider 1 parcel?
I can talk to the developer and see if he'd consider 1 parcel, but perhaps tabling this would be
Okay.
a way to go, just so I could get that information directly from him.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move to table the lot consolidation split proposed at 2444 and 2450 Professor Avenue.
You want date certain? You want to come back next
And
time, Leslie? Or-
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes.
Okay.
You need a second.
Second. Table it for 2 weeks.
Motion and second. Do you need a rationale? I'm just kidding. Do you need what?
Before we vote, I do have a quick question, but I think I heard Denise start to chime in too. I don't know, Denise, did you have something?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Dumb question. The construction of the project, if it's parceled off, does design review doesn't apply to individual townhomes, right? But it would if it was a master one.
It's more than.
Yeah, so I'm only asking because Mr. Harper had indicated that there had been some conversations with kind of the community and the development corporation. When this comes back, I would be interested in hearing a little more about those conversations, especially if the end result would come to it where the vertical construction of the new buildings wouldn't come back to this body because it would just go through housing design review. So I think it'd be useful to like hear that perspective.
I've done this with some.
But I agree,
Just-
I agree that tabling it is.
Pardon me, just for reference, we did go to HDRS for this. And so, yeah, I guess the question, Councilman Slife, you're asking, would we have to come to planning as opposed to HDRS if this is considered 1 parcel? Is that
Correct, yeah, this is, I mean, to put, I think the chairwoman's words another way, like this is kind of a master development, individual projects that are really acting as a master development. And if it were a master development, it would be subject to design review and BZA and a little more public input. So I think it would still be useful to get some of that public input if the way that this were to proceed doesn't automatically build it in.
I mean, it sounds like it did good before the block clubs.
Yes.
And so.
we've been, yeah, We've been to Block Club, Tremont Economic Development Committee, Board of Zoning Appeals. We've been through the whole process to this point.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Can we call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Melanie,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Frank, Scott,
Yes,
Sly.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Wesley. We'll see you soon.
Yes,
And
thank
it might be good to work with Shannon maybe, just to iron out if you go one way or the other, what's required. So I think Shannon might be a good person to reach out to and just brainstorm which way really accomplishes what you want and ensures what we need to.
Could I ask a quick question? Just 10 seconds too late.
Mhm.
Can we one more time get the technical difference between tabling and postponing?
Yes. They're tabling, generally speaking, Robert's Rules of Order, because you can hear that same piece later on in the same meeting. And this table get put on. Postponing is when you just come back to the next.
Okay.
So that we're wrong.
Wait, I think it was reverse. You table it to come back and then you take it off the table. So you postpone.
Table
In the
during
meeting?
Same meeting. Right. Oh, there's something that came up that is more important than this right now, so I'm gonna table this for the moment. We're gonna come back to it later after we discuss another topic.
Okay.
Somebody. That's table and the Robert's. Postponing is what we do. It's just that.
And when it comes back, if we had postponed this, do we have to, we don't have to remove it from the table.
You don't have to do anything.
It just comes back. All
So
right,
next time we'll postpone it.
next time,
Not this one, but
next time we'll.
wrong hit. Yeah,
All
right.
Sorry, we got all these new roads. I think I understand. Okay.
Madam Chair, I
Um,
do have a question. So
sure.
for each one, do we have to have a date to return?
No.
Not now
postponement and a
because we're gonna postpone and they come back whenever they want. So,
Okay, okay, thank you.
okay. Next item is a conditional use townhouse in a two-family district, permanent parcel number 002-05-13. This is 1376 West 71st Street. This is a zoning matter, so we will hear first from staff, from Shannon. We will then take any sponsor testimony. So anyone who, council person or the owner or the architect, and then we'll take public comment. And we will hear from those in favor of the zoning change first, and then those opposed. I'll ask that if you're online, just raise your hand and I'll call on you in order. You must give your name and address and your relationship to the property, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. So with that, Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Shannon Leonard, Chief City Planner, Zoning and Technology. This is for 1376 West 74th. The proposal is for 3 townhome units. Essentially, we're here because for any townhouse project, as you may remember, in a two-family, less than a multifamily district requires conditional use from you all. This specific parcel is north of Detroit, on a parcel that you all saw previously for a lot consolidation and a lot separation from the driveway on 76. And so this is the context. Really what you're deciding is this project visually compatible with nearby properties, scale, height, setbacks, orientation to existing streets, roof lines, architectural character, and proportion of architectural features. And so this is just some of the context along West 74th Street. Currently it's a mix, single family, two family, and some duplexes. And so that's really what you're deciding here. It's 3 large townhome units. They do have their driveway coming in not off of West 74th, but off of West 76, through an easement structure with the neighboring houses that already exist. And then you're also looking to make sure that the site layout is arranged in a way to create visual interest, promote safety and security between pedestrians and vehicles, and is efficient and comfortable. And so that's really it. as it relates to, what you're deciding during the conditional use process. And then I think the owner of the property is on the phone. And Mr. Adam Davenport, the neighborhood planner and manager for this area, may be available for comment. And as you'll notice, there's no garages, fronting West 74th at all.
Is Garrett Allen on? Is that who's speaking?
Yes, Madam Chair. Good morning.
Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, good morning. I have my architect Jeff Foster on and my partner Ray Reyes also on. Thank you for viewing this project today. We're excited to take this current vacant lot that's, based on our neighborhood discussions, kind of eyesore, and discussions with staff. Something wants to be done on this project. So we came up with this plan that really works with the zoning requirements and rear loading the garage access. We've worked with our neighbors to the rear of us to gain this access for the drives, and are looking forward to kind of making something happen. We went with this architectural style to, one, complement what's the changes in the community, but also go ahead and kind of blend in with what's been existing. And that's really about it. Jeff, I'm not sure if you had anything you wanted to say, or Ray, if you had anything you wanted to say.
No, Jeff Foster, Pato Architects. The only comment I would have on the architecture is we were taking some of the materials that are in the neighborhood, the brick, siding materials. Yes, they're interpreted in a modern aesthetic, but we think it's complementary in terms of its palette of colors, and it's meant to be more of a background building than a feature. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to take public comment. So first we'll ask anybody who is in favor of this zoning change, a proponent, to raise your hand, or if you're here in person, to speak to this matter. I don't see anyone's hand raised online. Is there anyone next who's opposed to the zoning change or has a question or a comment? I don't see anyone else. So we'll close the public portion and ask commission members if they have any questions or comments before a motion.
Before any motion, what is, I can't see that far. What's the frontage along West 74th, the length of frontage?
Jeff,
I don't ask, but
Yeah, total frontage is 80 feet.
80 feet, okay. So I ask because that street, like the typical Cleveland lot is a 40 to 45, but this is pretty atypical. They're narrow. I think most don't even have driveways. So this is sort of a situation where fitting the existing context would not really comport with building new housing without having to go through a kind of a slew of variances to meet the existing context. So I'm inclined to think it's a good solution, especially the rear loaded parking kind of preserves 74th as a nice little walkway down toward Battery Park.
Okay. Okay. I would say in this regard, whoever makes the motion should see here at the top sort of the, the comments of sort of the rationale for the conditional use, if you will.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move approval of this development because it is visually compatible with the nearby properties.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. We'll call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Craig Scott,
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
if I may interrupt, I am made aware that one of the presenters for future agenda item needs to leave the meeting at around 10. So I'm wondering at your discretion if it would be okay if we hear the
Sure.
Gary Buffalo billboard downtown item now
Okay.
in advance these other agenda items.
Okay, so let me find this one. This is on page 8 of your agenda. So we're gonna just skip ahead and we'll come right back to where we were in conditional use. Page 8, this is a design review case. So any of those who are speaking to this, I will swear you in. This is design review case 2023-030. This is a Harry Buffalo billboard. Sign variance is needed, so I'm sure Shannon has some guidelines for us. This is at 2130 High Avenue. Anybody who's speaking to this, can I swear you in either here or online? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do. David Bowen.
David Bowen. Anybody else? Okay. So I think just one. Shannon, are you kicking this off?
I'm gonna kick this off.
Let's do it.
Shannon Leonard, Chief City Planner, City Planning Commission, walked you through this proposal at 2130 High Avenue. Really, we're here to permit a new 378 square foot rooftop billboard in the Gateway Entertainment District atop the applicant's restaurant. It's flanked by a parking deck down and surrounded by the sports plexes. Why are we here? As you may remember, 350.16 gives City Planning Commission the ability to vary the code to either more strict or less strict regulations than what is required in the zoning code. Really, you're just looking at design compatibility, design guidelines, and minimum variation. And so the reason why we're here today is because the billboard that is being proposed in the entertainment district is actually first permitted in a general industry district as a roof sign when not facing a freeway, and it technically can't be in the design review district. And so here is zone general retail, but it is within that greater Gateway Entertainment District that's flanked by the sports plexes, the Guardian Stadium, Rocket Mortgage, as well as multiple restaurants and nightlife. Also, they do not need a size variance. They simply need the use variance in the general retail district here downtown. And so this is the context. The yellow arrow is showing where the billboard will be placed. And it is zone general retail. They do not exceed the height maximum, and they are within overall by the state aids. Again, just some context of where this will be located atop the Harry Buffalo restaurant that exists on Highland.
The heading underneath.
And then again, this is just showing technicalities of it, of how tall it is.
You gotta get
378 square feet. Generally speaking, it will be a V-shaped double-sided rooftop billboard structure. It does not exceed the height limit of the district. And generally, typical billboards across the city are 672 square feet. And so the considerations today is, does this result in signage that is better suited to the design of the subject property or nearby properties? Does this result in signage that follows Planning Commission standard of approved guidelines? And are these variances the minimum necessary to ensure design compatibility with surrounding properties and residential neighborhoods? And so I think Mr. David Bowen is here to go through the design of the structure and where it's located, and talk to you a little bit about illumination, as that was really important to us when we were talking to them, to make sure that they're within the appropriate standards so as not to affect the residential neighborhood.
Good morning, commission members.
Morning.
I think I'm one slide behind all the time, but the first slide I have, and I'm looking at a piece of paper because I'm actually on my phone, but it's 2130 High Avenue, which some people know as East 4th Street in this area. It's between Prospect and Huron Road, and it's on the Harry Buffalo. This is a project that is actually a court resolution, an agreement that takes away the sign on West 25th Street, and there will be 2 more billboards coming forth, but this is the easy one because the George family actually owns the building. Next slide, please. This shows the Harry Buffalo as you look northwest, and the right-hand picture as you look southwest. Next slide, please. This is a picture as you look north from Huron Road and northwest from Huron Road. Next slide, please. First slide is a picture looking down Prospect Avenue to the east, And the right picture is Prospect Avenue to the west. Next slide, please. I'll walk you around this because it's hard to read the measurements. But if you look at the north west corner, that is 15 feet. The billboard actually is a 36 by 10 feet 6 inch high billboard. It's 15 feet 7 inch and 9/16 to the south of the parapet, and it is 8 feet 5 inch and a quarter to the east of the building behind it. Then as you move down to the northeast corner, it's 2.6 inches from the parapet and 15 feet 4 inches to the south of the parapet. And then as you move to the southeast, it's 15.8 feet to the north and 2 feet 6 inches to the west. And then if you go to the back corner,
Marie, can you listen to the planning commission meeting on low and tell me when it's about time to go? It's probably gonna be at least an hour.
Hey,
yet.
Rick. Hi, Rick. We can hear you. You should mute.
Please mute.
That's because your ears don't
Okay.
work. I'm gonna send you
Okay.
the agenda. I mean, the link to the
Hey, Rick.
planning meeting.
Yes.
Rick
Here's the agenda. Just
Zalowski.
kind of keep track.
Commissioner, hey, Commissioner.
There you go.
That presentation
Sorry.
is then, and they're only
He's
here.
still.
I'm
yeah.
giving this at least an hour.
Can Maurice mute him?
Yep.
Can Maurice mute him?
I'll send you the
You're
link.
trying. Xavier's working on it.
All right.
There we
Go ahead,
go.
David.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the back of the billboard to the south is 8 feet 5 inches off the building behind it, and 16 feet 4 inches to the interior of the building. Next slide, please. This shows it's splayed at 45 degrees. They're 20 feet 5 inches apart from each other, and this is for the viewing angle. And then you can also see the substructure below it and missing the rooftop units and using the structure of the building itself, and it's on column lines. Next slide, please. This shows you the elevations. The top of the billboard is 54 feet high of the sidewalk in front of it, and it is 43 feet 6 inches to the bottom of the billboard. The billboard again is 10 feet 6 inches wide. Next slide, please. This is a slide depicting the billboard on top as a rendering looking north. Next slide, please. And this is the same billboard looking south. As you can see, the parapet wall just misses the bottom of the apron of the billboard. Next slide, please. There was a package I sent that really talked about the light mitigation involved with the newer billboards, but kind of the high level part of this is to keep it down at a decent foot candle where it's not impeding on people's viewing. The diodes are directional, and there's louvers that break out the light so that it doesn't have light pollution. So this is the first image. Next slide, please. And this shows you the actual board itself close up with the directional diodes and the louvers. That's the end of my presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Sure. Just to help clarify too, from the administration's perspective, this is a part of a strategy and an ongoing discussion around removing a large billboard from the neighborhood and future park site. And so because this is an entertainment district, we really felt like this would be an appropriate area to have additional billboards as required by this.
I had a hard time hearing that.
This is the director is just sharing that this is a part of a strategy to locate billboards in an entertainment district and to bring a large billboard out of a neighborhood and a future park site.
Okay, commission member?
I will note the Councilman McCormick is supportive of this, and I have no issue with it either. My only question for planning is, I recall that there's a cap on the number of billboards in the downtown area. Clarify if I'm incorrect, and if I'm correct, does that have any, is that handled through the zoning process, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I can clarify for you. So what you're referencing is wall murals. So there's a section of the zoning code referring to wall murals in 350.161, I believe, that allows for, you can apply for a wall mural. It's all about the application. So if you apply as a billboard, you apply as a billboard, if you apply as a wall mural, wall murals are a little bit different. Wall murals are a section of the code that is more artsy in nature. It does allow the off-premise advertising, but there are only, at this point in time, it's been upheld by the courts, that allow 6 to be displayed at any given time. So right now we have 2 applications that are waiting in queue for said wall murals to be removed, but that would go through the process if those were removed this year. But billboards are also just off-premise advertising that also, but it's a little bit different. And then if they were to be approved through the planning, through this planning commission body for the variances today, they'd be able to be displayed as soon as they get through building.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move approval of this item, specifically the Harry Buffalo billboard sign variance, because the, excuse me, the design is compatible with the surrounding properties in the sports district.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, let's call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Curry,
Yeah.
Prescott,
Yes.
Flex.
Yes.
Motion carried. All right, thank you very much. All right, let's go back to.
Thank you very much for all your time. I appreciate
Yes,
it.
thank you. An item which is on page 4. This is also a conditional use, I believe. So we will also have a public hearing on this one. This is permanent parcel number 004-19-182 at 615 Jefferson. Shannon, you'll go first, and then David Cron from Biolasty.
Good morning again, Shannon Leonard, Chief City Planner. So again, this is for a proposal is for a 4-unit townhome project at the corner of Jefferson and West 7th Street. They are located in a 2-family residential district, which is why they are here today to seek the conditional use. And so really what you're determining is the site location. They are going to be demolishing these 2 structures to build this project. So really you're deciding, is the development visually compatible with nearby properties and scale, height, setbacks, orientation to existing streets, street lines, materials, colors, and proportion of architectural features. This is just giving you what is on the adjacent corner. So the red building in the left-hand side is to the northwest, as well as the building, the home has that comes to a 0-foot lot line, but across the street, obviously they have a little bit deeper setbacks. And then along West 7th, they also have deeper setbacks. And so the proposal here is the development visually compatible with nearby properties and scale, height, setbacks, and orientation to the street. They do have a Jefferson address at this time, but through the design review process, they ultimately decided to give it more of a West 7th address, a West 7th frontage, to make sure they could screen the parking along this corner here at West 7th and Jefferson. And with that being said, they are not required to have 2 front doors on that corner unit at Jefferson and West 7th. And then, and this is just giving you some more context along with the site plan. It is going to be a one-way drive, so one way in and one way out, which allows them to reduce the size of the curb cut, 14. And so I'll turn it over to David, but really you're deciding whether it's visually compatible with nearby properties, and does the site layout create visual interest and promote safety between vehicles and pedestrians within this intersection?
Technical question to you just before he goes. In the process where this is, have we approved the demolition?
I don't think you approved the demolition.
Does this project also go through design review?
It did. It went through the HDRS because it's less than 5 units, and the demolition process.
Okay, so it's been through that process. When the conditional use happens, it doesn't come back at all at this point.
I don't believe that it should. It comes back. I'll let Michael
Okay,
speak on it.
okay,
Donna.
Infill, we would consider it
Okay.
infill housing.
okay. Okay, so we will, we'll hear from from David, and then we'll open it up for public comment at that point. Go ahead.
Thank you. We'll be relatively quick as Shannon sort of summed it up. So 3 existing units that unfortunately I believe were damaged by fire. I believe a permit has already been issued for demolition. And just as a note, this is maybe obvious, but it's just outside of the landmarks district. So we are not obligated to go before them, but we were before the Housing Design Review Subcommittee, as Shannon mentioned, just for preliminary review of the townhouse code, not for any design approvals. We have not yet had an opportunity to be in front of the Block Club, the Trima West Development Corporation, which we intend to do out of courtesy. But at this time, we're just asking you to consider the change of use. So very quickly, if you just want to pull through the slides here, I think Shannon did a great job capping it. So we're right here on the corner, of course, catty corner to Gospel Press, and then immediately across the street, and I apologize, I don't have a photo included in here, is a new development immediately across West 7th, which is much taller and kind of up on the hill. So trying to be very respectful of the scale of the housing. One thing to note is that 7th has unusually deep setback off the street. So that gives us, like the houses adjacent, a lot of extra depth off of the cartway, so to speak. Go to the next slide there. Existing conditions, like I said, I believe a permit has already been issued for these because they are beyond repair. Next slide. Just the existing site, 102 by 63. Next slide. 2 existing curb cuts, I should note, along 7th. So we're essentially reclaiming one of them and erasing the other, maintaining the condition along the lot line, setting it a little further back, but trying to maintain the intent of the townhouse code, with it being fairly close to the frontage, along with stoops, porches, so to speak, and then the one-way drive is noted there. Next slide. 4 identical townhomes with, I suppose, the last unit, the end unit, being slightly different in the sense of the way it is addressing the street with frontage, and it pops out a little bit on the upper level to give it some visual interest as it holds the corner. Next slide there. Typical layout of the upper units, so public level primarily on level 2, and the next slide will be the private level of the bedrooms, fairly conventional townhouse layout. Next slide there. And then, like many locations in Tremont, because it's fairly small, we're looking to have some rooftop walkout opportunities, and this does have some pretty nice views back to the Cleveland skyline. Next slide. Palette that we feel works well with the existing vernacular of the neighborhood, primarily in the language of some siding with brick at the lower level, give it a sense of gravity and base, and that ties into the planters along the street edge as well. Next slide. So height here, you can see we are a good bit above the neighboring home. That's really primarily a function of the townhouse code having to lift up 2 feet 4 inches for the ground level to start with. And then that goal of having that walkout rooftop. So the combination of the two sort of puts us a little bit above. We're trying to borrow some of the vernacular with some slightly sloped conditions. And again, we're not really done with these designs. This is kind of early in the process. We just wanted to run it through zoning and get this entitlement in place, and we will finalize the design and working with the neighborhood. Next slides. Just the rear. And you can see those kind of patios and the pop-ups. Next slide, and the scale of the neighboring homes. And then as noted, Jefferson is the current address, but we're primarily focusing the frontage on 7th as it's that linear condition there. It makes the most sense for the orientation and to best hide the garages. Next slide. And then just the side view coming down 7th. And the position, juxtaposition of the existing neighboring home. Next slide. And these are just the required porosity along the street level for the primary frontage. And the next slide is the other adjacent street along Jefferson. And then I believe we just have a few quick renders, preliminary renderings. So you can just go through those here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so anybody first in favor of the zoning change who'd like to speak? I see Donna on. Donna, would you like to go first?
Sure. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission. This is Donna Grigonis with Tremont West Development Corporation. I'm the Neighborhood Development Director. Good morning, everyone. So I did send a letter yesterday regarding this project. You know, Paraprint Townhomes hasn't come to the neighborhood group or our Community Development Corporation. And this project is really an example of the challenges that we've had with the townhouse code, because it really takes away the neighborhood review process. And since this hasn't gone before the community or the community process that has been upheld by the councilman and most of our residents, there has been no review from the people who are most impacted by the change of use without any conversation. And fortunately, I was able to send this to the Block Club a few weeks ago initially. And we reviewed it sort of, with some of the members from our Economic Development Committee briefly, although not officially. There were some comments made. The issue with the fence coming all the way up to where the sidewalk is, I think that would be an issue. We would ask that would be stepped back from the sidewalk to provide sight. And then I think the height has been an issue in this region specifically of the neighborhood. I know they have very frequently commented about the height variances that have been granted because it's so out of scale with the immediate neighboring homes. And I know that you guys mentioned that there is a large setback here. Maybe take that into consideration. I'm not sure if the brick wall on the front is maybe an issue that makes it seem more, less human scale there. And then I don't know what the plan is for driveway or garbage cans for the snow. I know you said you're going to come back to the neighborhood, but, and I know we've worked with Belaski before, and you guys are pretty honest, but sometimes you get conditional use and then these things aren't thought out and they get approved. And, it really becomes a concern. So thank you for letting me speak, and I appreciate your time, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Donna. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the zoning change, in person or online? Just raise your hand, or opposed either, I guess, since we're doing both. So go ahead. There's someone here in person for those online. Oh, staff member, yes.
Hi, my name is Gilly Payne. I'm here West Side City Planner for this area. This did come to HDRS under max review. This was kind of like the first project that was in transition. We did talk a little bit about the design, but as it was mentioned, it is still preliminary. There was an agreement about the front facing of it and the patio, so to speak. I would suggest maybe variation on that brick, so it's not planned. But we think this is a good idea for this to be not only have kind of like a UFO vibe, but also it's like private for them as well. So that was something that was agreed upon. But I do agree that it should come to the neighborhood for consideration.
Okay. Anybody else who wants to speak before we close the public portion? All right, we'll close the public portion, and any comments or questions from commission members? I have a couple questions. Go ahead. I guess this is to Shannon. does this meet all the requirements of the new townhouse code?
So the new townhouse code is still going through the permission process as it relates to like the transitions off of West Seventh. It is not.
Right, that's what I thought. So my question actually then is, and also I would say to David, although I agree with fronting this to Jefferson, I think there also ought to be much better special treatment to Jefferson, because that facade for me looks like a true side facade, and that's also a really nice street, which has, I'm not saying that you should have doors there, but it really still looks like a side facade as opposed to, I don't know functionally what's behind there, but for me, I tend to agree that this project makes sense, but I do believe the design from my perspective, and I don't know where it now fits really in process, could be a lot better in terms of really thoughtfully thinking about the ground floor and the relationship to the sidewalk, the side scale. How, if we really are transitioning to the new code, why is this actually going through in a way that it wouldn't otherwise have? And what I mean by that is, prior to the new code, there actually would have been process.
Right. So it's gone through some process in terms of going through HDRS within internally. Anything that's less than 5 units goes to that internal review body. I did mention to them in an email, orienting it in this direction does put like a non-frontage on Jefferson, which is, if it was oriented in a different way, obviously they could meet some of those new townhouse requirements better. And I shared those items with them, but I think they still wanted to come forward for the conditional use. I will say that part of your purview is orientation in site plan. And so maybe this is something that they could work through if that's part of your motion to come back in a postponement.
Yes.
Potentially, but that's up to you all.
Okay. Well, the difference for me is actually, I'm not saying they should front the other way. I'm just saying just not fronting that way doesn't mean that you can't treat that facade, which is a pretty major facade, differently, and not have a front door there. So I wasn't asking to orient that end unit. I just think in a normal process that would have actually probably worked itself out to actually be treated a little bit differently. So I think to the applicant, for us, I think people are saying like the size and scale, the 4 units tends to make sense from my perspective. But I think there should be a little bit more refinement and kind of thought at the ground level and at the facade level a little bit more. So that's my opinion.
So Madam Chair, I'd like to move to postpone this item for 2 reasons. One, to allow the neighborhood to discuss it in a public meeting, and for the designer to look at the items that were mentioned in terms of the facade, the fronting on West 7th, and other items that have come up in review.
Madam Chair, can I add okay. Can we also ask about what was referenced by Donna, the snow removal, as well as where trash will be contained?
Yeah, that is fine as an amendment.
Thank you.
I will second, and just a comment before the vote, because this is more of design. To Donna's point about the scale of the southern unit relative to the building immediately to the south, the home, I guess I sense that it's rooftop patio, structure as designed so that you get that end unit can have a view of downtown. Skeptically, I think trees would probably block that, so it's kind of aspirational. But for that southern unit, I guess if I were that homeowner, I would be a little back and forth on if I'd rather have an additional story there, or if I'd rather that be a southern facing, like do the two units on the southern side need to be oriented looking north, or could they be looking south? And would that help kind of gradually put the scale down towards that first home? So just a design idea. I don't know if that's feasible or of interest, but I think the only hangup I have with this is that additional story next to the home, so.
And I think that this relate very directly to the idea of conditional use, right? So we're really talking about compatibility and kind of layout and, but I think to the applicant, I think we all want to work together because, believe that this use makes sense. And so, ask that you work a little bit and come back to us, when you're ready. But first we should vote. So, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment, here? All right, call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Craig Scott,
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, see you soon, David. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Take care.
So, we have one more conditional use. This is a surface parking lot at 2023032, at 611 Huron Road. Shannon's going to present this, and John Michael Lemon from Osborne as well. This is also a public hearing, so we will take public comment
To the
as well.
chairs, for your awareness to the commission, the following item, which is the demo at 611 Huron, is also a second agenda item related to this.
In design review?
Yes.
Okay, and are you all speaking to this?
Yeah.
Then I'm just gonna do this here. I want you to present both. I'm gonna swear you in. We're gonna take two separate motions, and we're still gonna take public comment. So you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
And just so the group knows, the second item is 2023-031. We will take a separate motion. This is the proposed demolition of a 6-story parking structure seeking final approval at 611 Huron. So we'll take the full presentation here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the last one for today. This is a little bit different. This is a conditional use requirement to establish a new surface parking lot within downtown in the central business district. And so really they're just proposing a temporary surface lot with 36 spaces in the Gateway Parking District, which is within the central business district as a result of the demolition that they can talk to you about further of this building that's, I believe, been condemned. So this is really just the site layout for them. And so why are we here? Really, because you must approve building applications for the establishment or expansion of surface parking lots in designated districts as a conditional use. Essentially, if Planning Commission or Landmarks has approved a demolition of a building within the district and plans for a new building and other non-parking use to replace the same building, you can allow for conditional use of a new surface parking lot or an extension of a surface parking lot for a maximum of 1 year following the demolition of a building, or they must turn it into an open space. You do have the ability to extend that for 1 more year beyond that if they are showing due diligence and are planning for a new development. As we know, the development process can be kind of lengthy sometimes, so maybe more than 1 year is required. If you go more than 1 year, you would need to put that in your motion form with due diligence. Otherwise, they would need to come back to you or go through the Board of Zoning Appeals process to continue to use that 36 space lot indefinitely into the future. That's it. So again, this is a structure that is a public safety hazard and liability. The redevelopment isn't a due diligence anyway. So planning, we do think that they are meeting the conditions as it relates to the conditional use. And so I will turn it over to the Bedrock team to kind of walk you through what their plans are.
Great, good morning. Thank you, Shannon. I'm gonna defer to team to hands.
Maybe you may need to speak up. The microphone is right here. So
Okay.
if you could actually stand for.
Gotta come stand by me.
Come stand by.
It's nice to meet you.
Councilman Slide
And you need
is
to be on
a
camera.
little easier to hear.
Great, good morning to the commission, everyone gathered. Nora Romanoff, Bedrock. Unfortunately, John Michael Lemon is not able to be with us today, but we are ably represented by AJ Gillum from Osborne Engineering and Kate Gasparo, my colleague from Bedrock. Just a brief note of introduction. We are combining the two elements on the agenda. We are looking for conditional use. We're also going to run through our demo plans for the site. This site, which will be familiar to most in the room as the nucleus site we're calling 611 Huron for the purposes of this project. And as AJ and Kate go through, we are talking specifically about our plans over the next 3.5 months for demolition, but understand that there's also a conditional use note, which we actually speak to at the end of our presentation.
Okay, thanks so much, Nora. My name is Kate Gasparo. Great to be with you here today. I'll go through the demolition plans and then pass over to AJ to talk through the drawings that's over here on the screen. We're looking to demolish the 6-story parking structure and ramp leading to the basement of such structure at 611 Huron. We will be keeping the foundation walls and retaining walls of the basement level in place for site stability, but cutting 2 feet below grade. We are going to be fracturing and leaving the crushed the pavement there and left in place for site stability as well. We're creating a 36-spot surface parking lot for conditional use that Shannon just went through. The site is less than half an acre, so we're also, as part of the submission, including a letter from the sewer district speaking to the stormwater requirements for the conditional use of the surface parking lot. The tentative schedule is 3.5 months. We're hoping to start imminently and go till mid-October. We are also going to be seeking to close the roadway that's adjacent to the structure for safe demolition of the parking garage. Nora just spoke to its location. It's located in the downtown business district. It's between Huron and Prospect in a prominent location. This garage has had several violations that were cited prior to August 2021 as structurally unsafe. Bedrock took ownership of the property in November of 2022, so past those dates. And the parking garage was closed prior to our acquisition of the structure. We've had since received more structural assessments of the parking garage in which the engineering team has stated it's unserviceable, which is their technical term for its structural condition as of today. Bedrock believes that this is a public health and safety risk and also a nuisance. So we're seeking to have it demolished in a short term. So you can see the site here. The entirety of the nucleus site, which we're affectionately calling rock block internally, comprises the surface parking lot to plan left, the garage, which you can see at 611 Huron location, and then north of that is what we also affectionately call the Mr. Alberts building. The Mr. Alberts building will not be demolished. The lane that's adjacent to it will be brought to grade, since that brings you down to the basement of the garage, and the surface parking lot to land left will be staying in place as well. There's a public right-of-way that sits between the surface parking lot and the parking structure that will be staying in place. Will be hoped to be preserved as much as possible through the construction process. Here are some of the pictures of the garage. If you're not familiar with it, it's in various states of disarray. You can see these are the north and south boundaries of the garage. These are the west boundaries in the east. On the west side, just want to point out, you can see the public pathway. That is a public right-of-way that bisects the rock block site and adjacent to 611 Huron. We're not going to be impacting that, although we might need to seek a construction easement for the purpose of demolition and the surface parking lot construction. And then to the east, the site butts Hotel Indigo, who we've been in conversations with and working towards an agreement, such as when we go through the demolition of the parking structure.
Do you think it's a winter?
Oh, I'm sorry, was that? Okay. So AG will speak a little bit more to the structural investigation that we have performed thus far. In terms of the structures are separate, which is great news. So we're hoping not to impact Hotel Indigo operations and working with them on a agreement to sort of speak to that. So I'm frozen. No worries. Thank you. Okay, great. So we just talked to the exterior conditions of the garage. I just want to point out some of the pictures of the interior conditions. There's falling concrete, corroding rebar, falling beams, or failing beams, falling, that are being supported by the shoring that you see in these pictures. So it's a good thing that's no longer in use, and we'd like that it would be taken down, and we can reinstate some parking, although it's not the glorious maximum that it was in this garage. Now turn it over to AJ, so we're gonna talk.
Okay. AJ Gillen, Osborne Engineering. As far as our plans for demolition, I think, here's our demolition plan. Just the structure itself will be, all supported levels will be removed down to the basement level, which is about 11 feet below the street level. All interior columns, all interior partition walls will be removed, but we are going to leave the perimeter foundation walls. We'll remove those down to about 2 feet below grade. The reason is that helps with soil retention, so we're not getting out into the streets and sidewalks. And then obviously there'll be future, there are probably plans for future development, and those elements can be dealt with at that time to remove. The base slab will also remain. We'll just we're gonna rubbleize it, crush it up so we get drainage. We're not going to remove it though. All existing utilities, intention is we'll reuse all of our utilities. So our combined sewer coming in will be used for our lot drainage, and then the main power coming in, we'll use that for our lighting, site lighting, and parking equipment. Let's see. This is just a structural, our structural plan of the garage. But over, I guess, on the right side, well, on the left side, you can see there are some below grade structure. There's a vault, and then also a ramp that comes from the lower level. That'll be removed. After all the structure and perimeter walls have been removed to 2 feet down below grade, we're going to fill with a granular fill that drains well, but also impacts well for the surface lot. And then the plan to the right is that's the great street level, and we're just showing all of the expected closure along Huron Road to do this on the south side, and then also protective platforms on the areas that pedestrians can access, and also protective platform over hotel roofs that will be affected. To the north of this site, that is also owned by Prospect Acquisitions. And so that will be, the intention is that's going to be used for staging and for debris removal. So we're trying not to swing over any public spaces with cranes or equipment for debris removal.
I'll speak briefly about the surface lot conditional use, since this is a two-part motion today. We're requesting approval to operate a surface parking lot, so a for-hire lot, for 1 year in accordance with the conditional use code line, which is labeled here. We're citing that the structure is a public safety hazard and liability to Bedrock as the new owner of the site. And we are currently undergoing plans and due diligence for the redevelopment of the entire Nucleus now rock block site, which we're very excited about. But as Shannon stated, it takes a while to go through that. And in the meantime, we'd like to bring parking back online in some capacity to service the downtown area. Talking through the parking lot.
Okay, so this is the site plan for the new surface lot. Pretty simple. Right, there may be some modifications to this based on the design review yesterday, but overall the same number of spaces, 36 spaces. The perimeter of the lot will have 4 high mast 25 feet high lighting poles. And then there'll be one entrance exit into the lot with an island for the parking control gates and equipment. The perimeter of the surface lot will have fence or screen around it. It's going to be on the south, west, and north sides of the lot. And then the wall for Hotel Indigo, the hotel to the east will be the other barrier for the lot.
Is that a 4-foot ornamental?
Yes, so what we have on the plans, it is a 4-foot ornamental. I believe with 75% open.
Madam Chair, just a note, yesterday design review noted that in addition to the 4-foot ornamental screening of a landscape plan, which is in process already, we understand the directive. And for design review and certainly deferring to planning commission, we would work through that updated staff.
Okay.
And the other item discussed in our design review meeting yesterday is there's kind of 2 crosswalks going across here on the road near this lot. One is on the west side, it kind of goes diagonal. And then right at where we have the entrance, there's a crosswalk. It's closed, the crosswalk's closed, but there are curb cuts or transitions for crosswalk. So in our meeting yesterday, was requested to provide a layout, moving this entrance west and towards the west side of the lot. So if that crosswalk is going to be used in the future, and it won't conflict with.
So will you be relocating the drive also?
Yeah, that would, right.
You're agreeing to that request, meaning you're agreeing to the condition to relocate the drive west of the lot?
I believe.
Yes, we would work with staff to go through that, edit or amendment to the consent of this. What we're trying to do is retain the egress that's currently there on the sidewalk.
Okay.
So we would just want to better understand what additional approvals with engineering construction we need to adhere to, such that we can move the drive and make the requested changes to the sidewalk, since it will be impacted as well.
But you would come back to staff for both the landscaping and the drive? Okay. Okay, thank you. So just to pause, this is a public hearing, so we do need to take public comment either from online or anyone here. So anybody here to speak in favor of, first, we're really taking the public hearing is actually the conditional use. Anybody can speak in favor? Anybody who's opposed or who has a question or a comment online? Okay, I don't see anyone or hear anyone, so we'll close the public portion. Commission members, questions either to the conditional use or to the design review case a lot. I do have a question. It's just more general, so I'm going to ask it just for the commission members. And I have a lot of PTSD about parking lots. So with that, my question is really that it's more like a kind of process one. So pretty famous case when I first came on the commission, which was to demolish a building at the federal courthouse along the Pittsburgh Bridge for a temporary lot. How many years later is it? 20? So I've yet to see, it's still there.
Relative to the expensive time.
Yes. My point is that, and I agree, I know you guys are serious about development, so that's not, my point is, like, we want this to get redeveloped. So just know that we know that this is such an important development block, and this is part of that. But this is more a question about the code. So by right, you can have a temporary lot for 1 year, right?
Outside of the central business district.
Outside.
Yes, so the reason they are here today for that conditional use is because of that PTSD that you have.
Yes.
Lots buildings downtown being torn down and being used indefinitely as surface lots. And so that's why it requires a conditional year for 1 year. And then if they're showing you due diligence of planning, you can extend it for 2 years technically. So 1 year plus an additional year. Anything beyond that has to be approved by the board.
Okay, so 2 years to Boza, right?
They have to come back for the second year.
Yes.
And then if it goes beyond that, it goes to both.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to be clear about that.
This structure is really.
Yeah, structure needs to go.
And if I could just clarify, it's within the central business district, within specific districts, and this parking district. So this is part of the gateway parking district, that requires.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion on the first item, which is for the design of the new surface parking lot at 611 Huron Road, to move approval with the addition of the conditions for evaluation to relocate the driveway to the west of the lot and to add landscaping and fencing per the zoning code.
Could I can't make a motion, but I'm going to make a request if you're okay with it to add to this, which is kind of historically, we actually never approve a demolition of a building without an actual proposed development plan, even for parking. And I understand it's early. So I wonder if there should be a condition for to also prevent us, because this is also precedent, for any kind of request for the second year, that the second year cannot be granted without a full presentation of the development plan for the site, because we are actually not even seeing a proposed site plan for the whole district. So I think to protect ourselves, I'd like to request that we require the development plans before any extension, and that a timeline on them be that a realistic timeline of development in order to get the second year.
Yeah, so they're granted that 1 year following the demolition, and you can add the condition that they come back for that additional year rather than just automatically including.
Yeah. And just my point is that we normally really would not do this without a proposed site plan. And the one that gave me the TSD had actually a full proposal that had, we knew probably wasn't real, but it is a requirement. So this is an unusual case.
Are we allowed to?
So,
Just to clarify, and I want to thank Shannon and Director Royce for helping us through this process. I just want to make sure we understand your request amendment, that in coming back for the second year, we present an update on development plans before being allowed. Initially, we were granted the second year, but this is, okay.
I'm asking to not make it as just a right for the second year. That we would, when you come back you have to come back for the second year, and we need to see the progress on the development plan itself. So you can't come back in next year and say, well, we haven't even started the site planning.
Understood.
So I will add that as an amendment to my motion.
And I will second.
Any other comments? Call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, thank you. We'll see you in a year.
Well, we have to do.
Oh, no, we have to do the second one.
So.
The more important one.
Time coding.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would like to move approval of the demolition at 611 Huron Road due to the condition of the structure and its that it is a danger to the area as it stands there now.
Second.
I second.
Motion in 2 seconds. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carries. I need to recuse from the next one, so I'll go.
Diane Downing will be acting as the chair. Thank you, Commissioner Member Downing.
I didn't vote for you.
He didn't, nobody voted for it. No. I'll get back in August. Okay, so we are going to discuss 2023-004 is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame expansion. Seeking final approval, the address 1100 East 9th Street. Is Tim Oftermat, or who is going to present? Is there anyone
Greg
here from the Rock
Yes.
Hall?
Hello, it's Greg Harris, and I will be presenting, but I'll be joined by Mark Faulkner of PAL, our architecture firm, Lisa Switkin of James Corner Field Operations, and Tim Oftermat as our project rep.
Great. Would you like to lead off then, Greg?
This is me, acting chair. Did you swear them in here?
No,
Okay.
because it's not zoning, it's final.
No, design reviews. We're
Okay.
My policy goes for.
Let's see. Okay, then Greg and team, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth for this matter now in hearing?
We do.
As you shall answer under the penalty of perjury.
Yes, we do.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, Greg, now, want to start?
All right. Thank you very much, and thanks to Director Huang and I guess stand-in chair Downing and recused chair Curry. We're grateful to spend time with you and with the committee to share our design in this our final review. This is our fourth time in front of you, and I have to say each time it's invigorating, especially in the waiting room as we're hearing all these other projects, because it means good things are happening in our city, and people are reinvesting and building and growing, and we're grateful for your work. You've already heard who's going to be joining me, but before we jump into the presentation, I do want to share that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is in the thick of our summer season right now. Last week, we opened a blockbuster new exhibit celebrating the 50th anniversary of hip hop. We had members from Run DMC and Public Enemy in town with us to celebrate. We had a great long 4th of July weekend, and combined from the exhibit opening to the 4th, we had over 14,000 visitors at the museum. We expect this weekend to be just as good. And we have an incredible calendar of events of live music and family days and community days. And we're going to welcome hundreds of thousands of people to Cleveland just over the next 2-3 months. And we're in our 28th year. We've had 14 million guests, and we've had a $2 billion economic impact to the region. And one of the reasons for being here today is because we want to expand the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to better serve our community, to better grow our audiences, and have a more positive effect on Cleveland. So we're excited for this and can't wait to share these final drawings with you. We participated in a few PetBot reviews, one as recently as 2 weeks ago, and they reviewed all of our plans and had absolutely no objections. This included the EMS, perimeter security, traffic control, loading and unloading. We looked at how we'd be getting things in and out of the new construction, geothermal cooling, and of course, parking was discussed. And Lisa, when she presents, will note we even met with the city arborist on some of the green spaces that we're going to be creating as community parks and open places for our friends and neighbors. Yesterday's design review made a unanimous recommendation to move this to the Planning Commission. And they did have one condition, and that was to confirm that the Great Lakes Science Center was in support of this project, especially since it involves some of their property. And as a result, we have the Great Lakes Science Center President CEO Kirsten Ellenbogen with us today to comment on the record about their support of this project. And we can do that when we get to that slide. It's going to be 2 slides from now, and you'll actually see the site plan so you can visualize what's happening. With that, I'd like to jump into the formal presentation and move to slide 3, just to reset us all and give us our existing site plan, our existing conditions. And this includes a 2019, I've got to play with my screen to see what we're showing you. This includes a 2019 lease that a ground lease from the city that's between the Science Center and the Rock Hall. And that's given us the opportunity to do this expansion. Here's the existing. Let's go to page 4 because it shows and on my screen, I need to expand a little bit. I'm not seeing there we go. So, pardon me, looking down, it's pretty obvious the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is on the right side. That's our round plaza. Then on the far left side, pardon me, is the Great Lakes Science Center. In between there, you see a large rectangle. That's the new land lease for the property. And then just to the right of the square, there's an ellipse. That's the westernmost end of our expansion. So we're looking down at the expansion project, coming out of the Iron Pay Pyramid, moving to the west and ending at that ellipse. You can see from above that our new museum entrance, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is right closer to the road, much easier to get in and out. And we're doing it with minimal impact on the front plaza and traffic and other things. But in particular, when we're looking at this, you'll see that we have plantings and the gray sketching and the round trees that are going right up to the Great Lakes Science Center. As part of this project, we're going to be investing a lot of our resources, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame resources, into making this green space a far more user-friendly public park for the whole community. It's going to have a gentle 5% or less grade, so it's ADA accessible from the lake up to the street. And it's going to give the public a chance to really engage with the lakefront in a way they can't do at present. But it will involve moving on to Science Center property, and it might be a great time for us to ask the President and CEO, Kirsten Ellenbogen, to comment, since it was recommended yesterday by the Design Review Committee.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Downing, and thank you, Greg. I wanted to come and myself, instead of sending a letter, to just say the communication has been clear and frequent. The negotiation on the MOU is progressing quickly. We do expect to have the MOU completed within the next 4 to 6 weeks, frankly, if not sooner. And truly, the negotiation on this has kept in mind throughout the conversations that the priority is the public in creating this new park, and the Science Center and Rock Hall have set aside a lot of things to make sure that in the end the public's prioritized in that, and that's reflected in the MOU. So we're very pleased that this keeps that front of mind, and also reduces entanglements for the future. So everything's been proceeding very smoothly.
Thank you.
To the chair, I'm wondering, since we've seen this twice already, if we could invite the team to present the changes to the last ones, that would be really helpful, just for the sake of time.
Sure. Go right ahead.
Let's go to the next slide, just to give us a little view of what the existing, and then one more. And here's what here's what we want to do. With that, I'm happy to cede it over to Mark Faulkner of POW to show you any of the changes since the last time we were here, and also to take any questions that people may have of me before we hand it to Mark.
I don't think we have any questions for you, Greg. So Mark, just the changes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to be back in front of you all again today. So I think the changes will come on the next couple slides. This slide is really consistent with where we were before in terms of showing materiality. You know, we're really interested in exposed materials, metal, concrete, granite, exposed wood on the underside. I don't want to rehash that. This is a new view, just showing it a little lower, closer to ground level, but it gives you a nice perspective of what's happening for the design. So why don't we just go a couple slides forward, and I can talk about some of the new advancements. Again, this is really similar to what you've seen before. Our new expansion intersecting with the pay. That pay pyramid exists inside the building. You can go up and touch it. We're really preserving it. So if you go to the next slide, these are really the things we wanted to talk about, and we've been developing. So it's that connection detail between new and old. We want to make sure there's a lot of attention there. That's a really critical detail, and I want to talk about that briefly. The entryway, we want to make sure that it's clear. It's also limited maintenance. I want to talk about that. I'm going to hand it to Lisa. She's going to talk more about the landscape and some of the thoughts on East 9th Street. And then the final slide, we just want to talk about the aesthetics and the heaviness, which was a prior comment as well. If you keep going to the next slide, we can get into some of these detailed connections between new and old, just so you understand what our thinking is. This is a slide you just saw. If you go one more slide forward, it's important to understand that the existing condition right now, when you approach the rock hall, you walk on the roof of the main exhibit. So you're walking on top of the existing building. And there's already, the condition we are creating in our expansion already exists in terms of the relationship between the pyramid and the plaza, because it's already a roof you're walking on, there's already a drain there, there's already this grate there. So if you keep that in mind and you go one slide forward, this is the new condition that we're proposing. So it's really similar to what is there now, just elevated to where the new roof intersects the existing pay pyramid. There's going to be a gutter there. They do have problems now with some leakage in the existing pay pyramid. We really hope to, improve that in terms of this gutter detail. It's going to be like a stainless steel bathtub. There's going to be some solid panels that we need to remove some of the glass panels, make solid panels. We're going to do heat trace, and we're also going to add a little grate here just to keep other materials from getting out of there if anything gets blown in as well. The two structures act independently. That was another thing that was really important. So our new expansion can't cantilevers up to the existing pay pyramid, almost kissing it. It's not taking apart the existing structure of the existing pyramid at all. It's a big cantilever that comes up right against it. So it really impacts in terms of how we're dealing with it structurally at the connection between new and old. So those are some important points that we just wanted to mention in terms of the structure between the two buildings, and also how we're dealing with waterproofing, with rain gutters, and the like. I think the other thing to note is that we are diverting most of the water away from this interaction between new and old. There's drains that are picking up the water coming off our new roof. We're also draining a lot towards the lake edge as well. So any water from our new expansion roof is not going in this gutter that's up against the pay pyramid. So we just wanted to put that together in hopes of making sure that's clear, that relationship, and how that detail is being advanced, thought about as we go forward. The next part we wanted to talk about was the entrance. And you can go ahead, I think 2 slides. Yeah, one more slide, please. So I think there was some prior comments about making sure that the entrance was very clear, well lit, and just a natural entry point. This slide here, we've done some work to make sure that the lighting is very clear at the entryway. This slide is obviously weighted to the expansion. I should note that our expansion is just a little over 1/3 in terms of height compared to the existing pay pyramid. This is really up close to the new entry, so there's a bit of a forced perspective here, but our building is generally low in comparison to the existing pay pyramid. That entryway is right to the right of that drum. We've done some work to make sure that the storefront system doesn't have any gaps or kind of corner issues where trash might get caught or there might be birds roosting. So we wanted to make sure that was clear. We believe it's a really clear and natural entryway right off of the Erie side. That canopy extends right to the corner. So if there is inclement weather, somebody can get out of the car and be right there. Or if they're dropped off, it's a really convenient entryway. And it's also off of the main plaza. So if you're standing at the corner of 9th and Erie side, it's really a natural entry point. And it just points towards the existing pyramid in a way that really respects it, and it really kind of heightens the attitude towards it. And then I think if we go forward, I'm going to hand it off to Lisa, and she's going to talk a little more about the landscape and the connections to the surrounding streets. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So one of the comments that came up from design review as well as yourselves the last time we were before you was trying to have a kind of greater gesture towards East 9th Street. So we wanted to talk a little bit about that. I think one of the things that we think is quite important, and we actually completely agree with this comment, the significance of East 9th Street is something that we're looking at also as the prime consultant for the Lakefront Master Plan. And the idea here was that we wanted to sort of not jump out in front of the Lakefront Master Plan and some of the other initiatives that are happening to provide better pedestrian and bike access to North Coast Harbor and Buena Beach Park. And so the idea here was that we do something that really opens up the corner at East 9th Street. You can see that with the plaza, there's these kind of new sloped paths. They're ADA accessible under 5%. I think for those of you that know that corner today, it's kind of a sort of shallow set of steps, not ADA compliant. And so the idea here is to really open up that corner and allow for greater access and fully ADA accessible access onto the plaza. That creates a really incredible vista and viewpoint because you're right sort of on access with both the pay pyramid as well as the new expansion. And then we're also opening up another ADA access right at the entry point that Mark was just speaking to. In terms of East 9th Street itself, right now we're sort of leaving it intact as is with the goal that this becomes sort of renovated with part of the larger Lakefront Master Plan and that it is more holistic in terms of that kind of work that is ongoing now. The other thing we just kind of wanted to say about that entry point, and one of the comments that was raised was just ensuring that the plaza remains active. And with the expansion, we actually think that the project is, the whole plaza becomes sort of reanimated and even more active because actually it was Pay's original intention that it be activated on more than one side and not just at the pyramid itself. And so now we have this whole other edge, which allows for sort of spill out, overflow, et cetera. And so we do think that that is further animating the plaza. Next slide. This is just showing it from a sort of bird's eye perspective and a kind of raw state, not fully rendered, but you can sort of get to see those two kind of entry points onto the plaza, those connections, which are now ADA accessible. And there have not been significant changes on the community park side, although as Greg mentioned, we did meet with the city arborist. She was in support of all of the species selection and the way that we were detailing the planting. And so she did receive a full set of hard copies for her internal reference. Next. The other thing that came up was we have done some sort of further refinement on the materiality. I think there were comments in design review that this sort of echoes some of the industrial sort of harbor character as well as the kind of grittiness and rock and roll ideas that sort of come into the Rock Hall. And so here we're using, primarily flat work, ADA accessible. The light CIP and the fuchsia is kind of, those are walls that are actually carved out the outdoor rooms. So those, it's hard to see, but they're just the walls that are on the edging of the outdoor rooms. We're using a kind of precast. You see two different samples there. The idea is that the top is kind of more polished with the heavier aggregate, and then the riser or the kind of vertical edge has a little bit more texture. And then for the actual pathways themselves, we're using a CIP concrete, but there's an idea to kind of do this raked finish. Those are all ADA compliant. It's a very sort of subtle, but it kind of creates this expressive kind of flows and waves on the surface. And the two colors there are just denoting there's a kind of warmer tone on the plaza because it's meeting the existing plaza pavers, which are a warmer tone. And then there's a cooler tone within the community park area. And back to Mark for the last change and comment that came out of design review.
Thanks, Lisa. The last comment, it was about heaviness, material heaviness, and we just wanted to talk about how we've been advancing that. So if you go to the next slide, I think you can just go back to the elevation here. we've been thinking about these forms that touch the ground. They do have a heaviness, and we like that. They are granite, it's stone, and the side that you can't see in this view, the multi-purpose space, is exposed concrete. They anchor the building, they anchor the expansion. The roof, we've been looking at it as this plane that floats, and we've been detailing it in a way where it really has its own presence. It's picking up on the page geometry, but also has its own attitude. It's wood exposed glue lambs on the underside, inside the space, but also exposed on the outside. So you bring that warmth out, you create some outdoor rooms with clad at the edge with a steel panel. And we've been really articulating it so it feels like it's that plane, that gesture that intersects with the exhibit pyramid. And we believe it's quite light, and we're even looking at uplighting it in a way that really accents that gesture for the relationship between the new and old. And you can see in this view, and then I think the last one is a 3D that just shows you some of the materiality to it. I think in this view here, that long-lived rock sign is blocking that intersection between new and old from this vantage point. But there's a space there, there's a gap there, and that roof plane really floats off the ground and is really a unique and distinct element. And I think that's the end of our presentation. So I think we should just turn it over to any questions, and any of us can answer it.
Commission members, questions? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'm gonna take a stab at it. Oh, go ahead, Councilman, if you wanna.
No, you stab away.
Oh, if I may, before, excuse me, to the chair and, excuse me, Commission Member McRae Scott, just regarding the condition that was placed by design review, if we can go to that slide. Just wanted to raise, just for discussion purposes, it feels that with Kirsten appearing today, as well as they will have to work out the MOU between them, as well as ongoing land lease paperwork with the city of Cleveland, that this condition feels more or less moot at this moment. And so knowing that they'll come forward with additional agreements in the future.
I would agree, since she was with us to discuss it. So
no
is there a motion?
Okay, so should I include that in my motion, that the improvements to the Rock Hall work out the memorandum of understanding, MOU, with the city of Cleveland, and they also deal with the structural conditions and waterproofing of the pyramid, the clear and well-lit area of the entrance of the building, and the extension of the canopy, and also the well-lit path of East 9th Street, and making it more ADA accessible. Did I cover everything?
I think they've addressed all of that. So.
Okay.
I'll provide a second, but I think I'm okay if you're okay, Denise, with removing the Great Lakes letter since they came. I guess I think the conversation here is that it would be duplicative for them to resubmit a letter when they came in person.
That's fine.
Then I'll second.
Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
McRae Scott,
Yes.
Yes.
Madam Chair, to the director, there's a clarifying question. So with the MOU in development and Rock Hall as well as Great Lakes working through that in the next couple of weeks, does that have to come back before us, or is that can be worked through with the staff?
I think that's a private agreement between the two entities, and then also they will have to come to the city on their land lease because it's our premise anyway. So that process will happen further down the line. So I don't think the commission necessarily needs to
It's not our.
It's
not really our purview. So
Just a comment before they leave, because this is not related to the project, but I think that it's something that we should focus on as a city. Lots of conversations about the land bridge. But I would like us to kind of push ourselves to think through how we could improve in the near term the East 9th experience from Lakeside up. Very wide road. I'm not convinced we need the westernmost lane. And even when Land Bridge is complete, a lot of people will still be funneling up and down 9th Street. So if with all this work happening, at the Rock Hall and more work to continue down on the North Coast, I'd like for us to think of ways that we can make the experience of getting there part of the experience as well and not feel like you're just crossing the highway. So that's something for us to work on as a city, but I kind of want to throw it out there so we can get it more on people's radar. So.
All right, well, thank you all. We look forward to seeing this under construction and then done. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Erica just went to the restroom. We did Harry Buffalo.
Madam Chair, I believe the next item is West 73rd.
Yeah.
And I would like to say that I'm going to abstain on this, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm going to give a second for Erica to come back. And to the presenters, everybody else that's left, and I don't want you to leave anything out, but please make your presentations pretty succinct because we have 1 hour before we'll lose a quorum. So we're going to move fairly efficiently through the rest of the agenda. Hold on, there's Erica. So the next item is 2022 012. This is West 73rd Street Apartments, new construction, seeking final approval. This is at 1325 West 73rd Street. Wesley Harper, I'm going to swear you in again for this one. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
And for commission members, before we go, in your packet, you can see that this was approved with conditions at local with 1 no vote and 1 abstention. And I'm going to note that commission member Diana is going to abstain as well, but will remain at the table. So with that, we will turn it over to you, Wesley.
Thank you.
Staff is also going to make some comments. Sorry, do you want to make the staff comments before or after the presentation? Yeah. Okay, after. All right, go ahead, Wesley. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Wes Harper with Wharton Harper Architects. I've been working with Jeffrey and Joe Zagelbaum, the developers of the project, for the better part of a year on this project. We've been in front of Far West and Planning Commission a handful of times. As Madam Chair mentioned, we received schematic approval from Planning Commission last year, and we recently received final approval from Far West a couple months ago. So I guess we just get into the presentation. The site is north of Detroit Avenue on West 73rd Street in the Gordon Square neighborhood. There's been a fair amount of development on this street, especially directly north, and I think that continues today. The site, if we go to the next page, please, is bounded by West 73rd to the west, and then a mix of uses behind us between 73rd and 70th. We have single family, kind of light industrial, and then a soccer field. To our south, we have the existing funeral home. To the north, we have is going through the design process right now for a new multifamily project. Our project requires no variances. We are meeting height restrictions as well as parking requirements. Here's our site looking at a more aerial view. The site has since been cleared of all the 1-story light industrial buildings. Next. Some of the context here, you can see the funeral home at the upper left, and then a mix of existing housing stock along 73rd and in kind of the greater Battery Park area. At the bottom right, you can see a progress photo of the apartment building that I believe is completed now, a little further north of us, just south of the railroad tracks. Next. Here's some views of the existing has been clear development. Next. Here we have the site plan, which has been updated to reflect the existing kind of parking layout that we have here, as well as the majority of the street trees that exist on the site. We are proposing 2 structures. Both contain 97 apartment units. Each has 70 covered parking spaces. They're both 5 stories and both just under 88,000 total square feet. As I mentioned, we don't require any variances for height, setbacks, lot coverage, parking. We've been working with the utility companies to assure their easements are being respected. And we're incredibly close to being able to submit for a permit at this point. You can see each building has its own ingress and egress driveway. These are 2 individual parcels. And so we've been dealing with the landscaping that is between those structures to create a welcoming kind of tenant outdoor space. You can see each building has a courtyard in the middle, which allows light into the interior units. Next. As we went through the process, you know, there was a lot of pushback from the neighborhood on the parking count. And so in response to that, we've really kind of souped up the mass transit and kind of alternative transit option infrastructure of the building. This map shows bike paths, bus lines, and you know, Edgewater Park to the north. There's service to the 26 bus line directly on Detroit. And then to the north of us, there's a stop for the 55 that connects downtown to the west side. Next. Both structures, again, have kind of a souped up nature relative to the alternative transportation modes. You know, we obviously don't have a 1-to-1 parking ratio. The developer is very comfortable with the ratio that we have. But in response to some of the feedback we've gotten from the neighborhood, we have enlarged our bike parking area. We have guest bicycle parking in between the 2 buildings, electric scooter parking, ride sharing, defined zones in front of the buildings. So we think that that kind of takes the edge off of the non-1-to-1 parking count, even though from a zoning perspective, we're meeting the requirements. Next. Just some imagery of what these types of infrastructure look like. Next. And then you can see here a view of the rideshare area, which is right outside of the vestibule of each structure. Next, please. And then each of these main vestibules for each building contain what is essentially kind of a waiting area for rideshare. We're hoping to have you know, a connection with real-time RTA information for the 55 and 26 bus lines, and even the red line potentially. We're still working through those details, but it is something that we're actively looking to integrate into this space. Next. Next. Here's a view looking out towards the street. Obviously, large open windows where you can get a good view of the rideshare area to hopefully make it a very efficient pickup and drop off spot. Next. Another view of the vestibule. Next. Next. Here we're showing responding to some of the options that Far West was looking for. Previously, you can see in the previous view that we had, if you could go to the previous page, Yeah, the railing kind of on the, above the third level is set back in this view. The Far West Committee wanted me to take a look at pushing those railings out, which we show in the next view. I would prefer the current view that we have. I think it allows that 3-story part of the building to feel shorter. Next. Here's a view looking towards the southeast. This was another view that trying to see that railing. So I think if you go to the next image, it would show that railing protruding a bit more. Again, I think the previous version was better. You can see here the amount of windows that are above the vestibule on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors is more expansive than it once was. Again, that was in response to the Far West Design Review Committee asking to kind of animate that large brick facade, which we've done. Next. Here's a view looking towards the green space in between the two buildings. Next. Another view kind of moving more into that green space. Next. And then a view looking back towards West 73rd Street in between the two buildings. Next. Here's a view looking to the northeast, which is we're standing essentially in front of the Edgewater Hill Victory Garden. So we have, you know, the 3-story portion kind of commanding the majority of the street presence along 73rd. We've added a lot more planting to the area between the sidewalk and the building. And we're turning that corner with brick so that the brick portion almost feels like it's buttressing the rear portion of the building, which has a little bit different character than the front facade. But we think it's something that kind of, from a design perspective, makes sense. Next. Here's a view from Herman Avenue looking towards the southeast. You can see that the 3-story portion you know, kind of is capped in some instances and then open where the balconies set into the facade. And then above those, you can see the railings that we've been looking at earlier. But we wanted to keep a very simple palette. It's a mix of kind of a reddish brick and then cast stone sitting above it. Next. Here's a view looking at the north face of the north building. This view potentially could go away with that site to the north being developed. But you can see again how this kind of buttressing of the rear portion of the building is being managed from a design perspective. Next. Here's a view of the rear of the buildings. This would be an EIFS material. You'd have asphalt shingle roof on those pitched roof portions. This is done in order to meet the zoning, which has a 1-to-1 step back or setback requirement to meet the criteria, which this does. Next. Here's a view looking towards the northeast again. Next. And then a view looking towards the southeast. Next. Here's more of a close-up view of the sidewalk pedestrian experience. You can see that these balconies are inset a bit from the front facade to give kind of additional depth to the facade. It's then clad in EIFS around the sliding doors, and then the guardrails are a vertically oriented wood supported by a steel structure. Next. Again, kind of went through this, but the material palette is reddish brick, EIFS, cast stone that would act as basically the cap of the 3rd floor, and then the cladding for the 4th floor in the front. We have aluminum handrails in locations, black window frames, and then examples of the exterior lighting. Next. Here is kind of a street section through the building and through West 73rd and kind of a typical home on the west side of the street. Here you can really start to see the landscaping buffer and then how the building is setting back from that street edge. Next. Floor plans, I don't really want to get into too much detail here. I know time is of the essence.
Actually, you don't have to show us the footprint.
Okay. Well, essentially that's it. There's exterior here that show our heights. So I suppose with that, I'd open it up to questions. We do have Joe Zagelbaum, I believe, on the call. Should anything be needed from him? I don't see him on the list, but thank you.
Okay, we're gonna, thank you. We're gonna start with staff first and then open up to the commission.
Thank you, commission members, and Davenport staff planner here. This site, I guess I'll broadly talk about the site in general for a couple of minutes. This is the third proposal we've seen for this particular site in 73rd over the past 5 years. First a townhouse project, next an apartment building, now this apartment building as well. I think it's important to note that the design is entirely zoning entitled. It meets the urban form overlay requirements as well as other setback zoning requirements as well. There have been some conditions that Far West talked about that are on the screen right now. So I won't go into too many details about the design, but in terms of like the site itself as well, there have been many concerns from the neighborhood and the local council person about parking, traffic, and just general like density along 73rd. 73rd was redesigned a few years ago with the village model to Headquarter Park at the end, northern terminus, so it's become quite a busy street overall. The city is actively working on crosswalk improvements as well as a four-way stop intersection north of this project in responses to some of those newer apartment buildings that we've seen a couple of years ago. The Avenue Partners project north of this site is fully finished at this point, I think, almost, and almost fully leased. And we'll probably see another site being developed, as Wes mentioned, to the north of this, the Zagelbaum project as well. So overall, I mean, the city is very supportive, the planning commission is very supportive of the site being developed under the urban form overlay requirements, and Far West is fully designed as well. Happy to answer any kind of nuanced questions about all of that, but
Also, it's our transit-oriented development direction as they've increased their multimodal options as well, as we saw in the last presentation.
So there's, thank you, and I know that this has been a long project. Reading through the committee's recommendations, I almost kind of want to go one by one, and I don't want to take too much time with it, but it seems like some of them are next steps and some of them either they've been done up to this point or they have been done, but they seem awkward for a final approval motion. So if you'll bear with me, and I guess I'll direct these to Adam and then he can kick it off to whomever, but for number one, I think documenting the location of existing street trees is fine. And it is the city's expectation that you would damage or repair or replace damaged trees. The one that I have the hang up with is infilling where there are no trees currently. Is that specific to the tree lawn trees? Because it's the determination of the city forester, the density of the trees. If the trees are at a certain spacing, that's to allow the trees to grow. So I have a bit of a concern about that part specifically of the recommendation.
Yeah, those are for street trees only. Infill where there are none.
All right.
There's been a couple that have died or maybe damaged during the construction, et cetera.
All right, I'm fine with. So to my committee members, I'm fine with requiring replacing damaged trees, but I'm not comfortable with infilling where there's no trees currently, as I think that was a decision made by staff. Coordinating the site plan and the landscape plan. Can you care? What was the intent of that? Has that? I guess so. I'm thinking like we're granting final approval. This is a building permit. And when you don't meet your site plan, when you don't meet your landscaping plans, you can be cited essentially for like a zoning violation. So like, what is the intent of this? Is this some ongoing purpose or was this a request prior to this coming into the full body, that there be stronger coordination. Has that occurred? Can that be removed as a condition for final approval?
That may be able to be removed. I'll let Wes talk about that. The intent I think this was reviewed in a late May or very early June Far West meeting. So there were some slight discrepancies between the site plan and the landscaping plan. And that goes along with number 3 as well. It's a big site. It's a very large presentation that Wes just gave. So ensuring that there is specificity on where and what and to what, what size and quantity those landscaping elements are going. That was the intention of the Far West.
Okay. Wes, quickly.
Yes, we have Daru Landscape Architects on board. We're going through the kind of more technical document to produce a schedule that discusses the type and quantity and exact location of the landscaping to essentially coordinate with what was shown in the presentation. There was maybe a couple street trees that weren't exactly placed that I believe it was Mr. McAndrews on Far West pointed out. So it's really just assuring that the street tree locations and then maybe a handful of plantings along the sides of the building were fully coordinated, which is what we're going through right now.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I'm inclined to almost the second and third ones don't like. We can create a 1:20 scale landscape plan, but like, what is upon receipt of that deliverable? Like, what's the action item of the deliverable? Like, that's where am I overthinking this?
I think maybe.
That seems like something that would come from a conceptual approval and it would be resolved by the time it's coming to final approval. It doesn't seem like something that would be in a final recommendation because it's at that point done, right?
Sometimes. I think usually upon final review at design review meetings, that's when kind of landscaping plans are finalized. Usually at the conceptual stage, they are not specified with quantity and size yet necessarily. So when staff get the final construction documents set, we will review that and fact check it based on what was approved at those design reviews.
All right.
So
jumping down, because some of these looks at like researching things, so whatever. Create a rendering showing the brick extending east on the south wall of the southern building. Was that rendering created? Is that in the final plan?
Adam, that was forwarded to you, I believe early last month after the final meeting. We produced a handful of renderings to pass along to Far West. They wanted to see what the southern facade of the southern building would look like with that brick. Executed that. I guess I'm not sure what their opinion of that was in the end.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting the music starting over on my side.
That's all right.
So I'll pause and I'll let others come in before you do a motion, but I guess my discomfort is just like, again, like creating a rendering. This is final approval. Like, was the rendering created? Was it adopted? Was it incorporated? It's just like, what would be the point of us saying that they should create a rendering at this stage of the game? It just seems odd. So I will pause and I will defer back to the chair.
Well, I mean, if there's a motion, I do think in this case, I agree with you. Maybe this should be tightened, should have been tightened up a little bit, but maybe we could trust that if we approve with the conditions that staff might have the authority then to check these things and make sure not only are they done, but are they really in the spirit of what the intent was from design review. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But any other questions or comments about the project? Other commission members? I mean, I will note, it evolved quite a bit since we saw it last, Wesley. I think it has really advanced quite well. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
would the chair entertain a motion with conditions, but that are not exactly replicated, attempt to pare down the conditions?
But we don't even
All right.
have to approve any of them.
All right, so I don't want to circumvent and not, try to override Far West. I just,
Okay.
I want to your point, I want to make sure that we can give some stuff to staff. So
Okay.
I will move to approve, with the following conditions, documenting the location of street trees and that the project will, replace damaged trees and trees damaged during construction in coordination with urban forestry. That as it relates to all landscaping plans, that plans will be coordinated with staff. That the project would replace any damaged fencing, and that work with staff and attempt to minimize utility access on the southern facade and to minimize pavers. To explore with staff adding pavers or stamped concrete when new driveways meet the sidewalk. To work with staff on the delivery drop-off area, and to work with staff on buffering the courtyard between the buildings with landscaping or screening.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Downey,
Abstain.
Curry,
Yes.
McLeod Scott,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, thank you, Wesley. So you'll just work with staff to finalize the last items. The next item is the Vietnamese temple.
To the chair, I'm sorry, because we have forum issues coming up, I'm wondering if we could actually jump to West 56th Street homes. That's an item that you Madam Chair will have to.
Yeah.
recuse from. So
Okay.
before we move
Oh, that's a
forward,
great idea. Okay.
Jump ahead. We'll
All
come
right.
back to the Vietnamese temple. Thank
Okay.
you for your patience. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, next item is near West Design Review, West 56th Street Homes at Hope Commons, seeking final approval. The address is 3160 West 56th Street. Is Jeff Stridney here? Okay. And just a moment, gotta swear you in. And is there anyone else speaking to this item?
Yes.
Okay.
Ryan Bodine at Caliber Building.
Do you both solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth for this matter now in hearing, as you shall answer under the penalty of perjury?
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead. And this is for final approval, so again, time is of the essence.
Is it just the main button that I click to advance?
There's a sign over here.
Moving forward, so I'll just say, Jeff Stredney, it's great to be here today. Thank you all. It's a pleasure to present. It's been a journey to get here, and we're grateful for it. Building Hope in the City is a very small bit of context. We are a 20-year local nonprofit that has been operating in several of the near west parts of Cleveland and throughout greater Cleveland area. We really animate faith and action in building into the lives of people. And we've recently gotten into supporting the lives of people through infrastructure improvements. And so that has been at the request of many, many persons at Metro West CDO and many of the neighbors that we've engaged with. So this is our first time doing development like this. And so we wanted to come in person to present that and to hopefully start a good relationship that will build many projects forward. As part of the team around this, because we are a nonprofit, we do have partners that have some capability and are advising and helping. So architect and our design, Brian from Caliber Building, and then some supporters from Petrus Homes, Gary Name and Mark Craigie, as well as additional project support from Independence Construction and some folks from DiGeronimo companies as well. And then the project owner is Building Hope in the City. I thought it'd be helpful to just bring this commission up to speed on what we went through with the full rigor of the Near West Design Review process. So we received our conceptual approval in February, and then we had some conditions in April for our final approval. And the schematic approval conditions were essentially that they wanted the site layout to be pulled forward to align with neighbors. They wanted walkways moved closer to the buildings. And they essentially want us to find ways to create more green space. So you'll see in our final site arrangement that we've moved the parking lot over, we've reduced the number of walkways that are therein, and we've created more of that contiguous open green space. They wanted to increase options for the entry and exit of parking off the alley. We originally had one entryway. We have taken the paving all the way to the edge of the alley just to allow more room for entry and to turn around. And then some exterior design changes, adding gabling, flipping things, etc. We complied with all of those recommendations, and we think it's a really good product at the end. And then in May, we received our final approval from the Near West Design Group. Here's a little bit of context from the aerials. The blue box shows where we're at. We're essentially between Clark Avenue and Store. In this shot, it's Clark Avenue to Cuba, which is a side street. And then from West 56th is your eastern boundary, and West 58th is your western boundary on the street. It is technically in Ward 3, but right on the border of Ward 14. I think West 56 actually is that dividing line. So we have had some communication with Councilman McCormick and a lot of communication with Councilman Santana about this project, as well as Metro CDO and neighbors. Here's the close-up of the orientation of that site. It is for vacant parcels. We currently are in possession of 3 of them. And the last one is in the possession of the city land bank. And so upon approval here, we would go seek that lot from the city land bank. This is another orientation. If you were oriented north, I'm just looking at the site and the street. Moving on to the street views, this is the southernmost parcel. You can also see the neighboring houses, 2-story, various colors. Here are the mid parcels. And then here is the northernmost parcel on West 56th Street. And then just some photos for context. In particularly, we thought it'd be helpful to present the alley for parking issues. That is often something. When we went before PetBot, which we have done, that was an issue that was raised about entry and exit. And so we were able to take some photos and get some approvals and good advice from PetBot. And then just various site context photos. They're vacant lots. There isn't a whole lot to know, but we did document this as part of our rigor in the process. And then these are our final submissions. So this includes everything that was submitted. At the commission's request, we're happy to present all of it, or just the floor plans, or just the site plan as you see fit. So I'll move quickly, and of course, if anyone would like to stop or ask questions, we'll be happy to do so.
We don't need to see the floor plans, the interior.
All right, we'll continue on through the cutaways. They're essentially 2-bedroom, 2-bath units. It is 14 units across the 4 buildings. 3 of the buildings are quad units and one's a duplex. Here's our site grading and wastewater management plan from the city. And here is the site layout as it's being presented here. You see the 3 quad buildings from the southernmost parcel moving to the northernmost, and then the duplex is in the front. We felt that arrangement, it's different from the original arrangement. It allows for kind of a better blending of the duplex with the larger quad units. And as you can see, the porches and all the fronts are aligned with those of the neighbors. And then it's created more larger contiguous green space as you're looking at the screen on the left-hand side. And we reduced the amount of concrete from the initial design and build. And then as we mentioned, the parking area goes all the way to the edge of the alley. There was a lot of talk at design review about that, but ultimately this was decided to be the best position for everyone and to reduce the amount of accidents that could be possible. This is the site rendering, kind of the streetscape view of what those units will look like. I think particular note from design review was the adding of the gabling really helped with the duplex, and so appreciated the input from the committee on that front. And then an arrangement of colors. With our final approval, we have no conditions from design review, although there has been discussion about maybe which order the color should be, or other small things like that nature. Here's a close-up of one of the units, one of the quad units. And then here's a view from the rear. We also added some trim and shape to the rear. The comment from design review was break up just the monotony of the back, and so we've been able to do that. We do have a parking lot with 14 spaces that allows 1 space per unit, per city code. And then that contiguous green space that we talked about previously. There is no signage plan. In terms of the lighting plan, I'll turn that over to Ryan for any comments on the lighting.
Sure, this is just a photometric study of the parking lot. One of the concerns from the design review was security and safety. So we addressed that with some full lights, they're 60 feet high, and less yellow ones.
We have various photos of the lighting. The only other consideration here is that some of the lighting might be white or off-white. So, color of the lighting is something that we're looking at, although the actual fixtures are what has been approved and what we would be going with. Further spec sheets on this, I think there's the lighting pole. Yeah, Ryan, you want to comment on this?
Yeah, no, the idea here was, economic, budget-friendly full lighting that'll minimize heating of neighborhoods.
Continuing on. We have the material samples. So what we did was we took one for each house and just showed the overlay. It's presented here digitally, and then Ryan's also presented the board. And we have samples if any commission member would like to see them. Ryan, anything to present on here?
No, the one thing the design review asked was to do with a larger exposure siding on the front elevation. So we've done that with 7-inch exposure vinyl siding. That's the full back product on the front elevation. And the rear side elevations will be a 4 and 5 inches.
And then here is the final site plan with the plant list as required. There are some boxwood and some other plants that are there. You might note that there were trees in the aerial photos. Those will need to be removed for this. But we do have some infill trees. And then as a local nonprofit within 10 blocks of this region, Building Hope in the City has several fruit and farm efforts. We have successfully planted over 40 fruit trees on vacant parcels within 10 blocks of this building. And then we have included 2 micro farms to support neighborhood farm efforts as well. So we have more than planted back trees that we need to be removing for this site. And we have added back in trees. And actually one of the comments from design review was to actually get rid of a few more trees that we were putting back in because they really, really desired there to be more contiguous space, particularly for children that might be in these units or building to play in the backyard. And that concludes our presentation.
Okay, I noticed that there are some comments on our listing from design review. I'm not sure they were addressed in your presentation. Align the transom windows on the east and west elevations.
To clarify, those are actually.
I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Never mind.
We do have a staff member who wants to provide brief comments. Yeah.
Good to meet you.
So Building Hope in the City has followed all city processes with local design review as well as considered most, if not all, recommendations and conditions. They have provided all materials and plans in detail and have had multiple internal and public discussions. There's a school not even 5 minutes away from here, and that would benefit any families coming to this multi-family housing, as well as developing Main Street on Park for the demographic. They have been an absolute pleasure to work with, and dare I say, I wish all projects were as good as this one. I'm happy to have seen this project start as a seed at Metro West EC and follow along as it moves through my current role as city planning top work with projects. They've addressed everything that has been recommended within the local design review. The design review is very happy to see this being infilled in this location. Housing is definitely needed in this area. I'm very excited that Parliamentary is also revitalizing their area. So.
Can I add 2 quick brief comments that this is the very first housing start in the Stockyards neighborhood in many decades. So it's a really big deal. And so Councilwoman Santana was at the ribbon cutting, very emotional. I think secondly, this is housing, including fourplexes that supports multi-generational families, including those who are newcomers, refugees who want to live in closer quarters. And, ultimately, we support the duplex, fourplex concepts. they will need a variance at BZA, and so, but we will support that.
Right? Commission members? Comments, a motion?
I will move approval.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Right, call the roll?
Anthony,
yes.
Down,
Yes.
McBride Scott,
Yes.
Buck.
Yes.
Great, thank you
Thank you
very much.
Appreciate you.
Uh-huh. Is Lillian just outside? Go back to the Vietnamese temple and those comments that I read incorrectly for the left.
Back one, right?
Yes. Vietnamese temple.
Okay. For the Vietnamese temple, 4724 West 130th Street. Joey and anyone else, I'll need to swear you in. Note that we approved this for conceptual approval on May 5th. This is for final approval. And I want to note that there were some conditions, they're listed on your sheet. And there was one no vote. So we're going to ask staff to clarify those later before we vote. So Joey, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
Yes,
Okay. Are you the only one speaking to this matter?
I'm the architect.
Good morning. My name is Troc Nguyen. I'm the representing the temple.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, take it away. And if
Okay.
you can move pretty quickly, since we've seen this, and maybe address the comments or the conditions from design review, that would be great.
The design review committee, the only condition that they had was that they wanted the foundation to be the same color as the front steps to the building. If I can share my content.
Your content's up on the screen. We have 4 comments: align the transom windows on the east and west facade,
Right.
all columns to be round as noted, roof eave detailed to match existing, and the accent base that you noted.
Yes, I'm aligning the windows on the building. They were concerned about the windows on the west not aligning with the windows on the east, and that's a simple matter of just shifting them.
Okay,
It will be done.
okay. We have your images up on the screen. If you want to go ahead.
Yeah, what you're seeing here are 2 renderings. The one is without any trees and the other one is with planting. What we have on the right side is the existing temple in place, where if you go back 2 slides, I have photos of the exit there. That's the existing temple right there. And then if you will proceed 2 slides forward, that we're going to put on a 4,000 square foot assembly hall for the congregation. And that's in the middle. And then there's a 2-story, 2,400 square foot residential area, which is going to be used for the monk to stay in, and will also house monks and nuns as they come for certain yearly celebrations. Yeah, that shows the temple, which is in the center. And then the building just to the south of that, which is lower down in the photograph, is being torn down. That's a house that's being torn down to make room for the additions to the temple.
You can move a little more quickly. We saw this at conceptual, so you can really just move through these pretty quickly.
That's the house that's being torn down there. Yeah.
Okay.
We also have, there's also a plot of land to the southwest of the main building that's going to be built that is owned by the temple and is going to be turned into parking.
Okay.
And we've already got that approved through the through our meeting on Monday.
Okay.
That was,
Thank you. I'm gonna ask staff to comment just about the local, so we understand what
Yeah,
happened.
I think, so at the local level, project has seen a few times at some different meetings. I think the local sentiment was trying to get a lot of information on the influence of the design. Overall, project is overwhelmingly supported. I think for the review body that is, the makeup of Far West, the committee itself, we're trying to get an understanding of what the influences were. Those slides at the beginning that Xavier were showing were helpful at the past meeting, but there was a request by some members for the design to be more detailed and more like some of the temples that were shown as an existing reference.
Okay. Commissioner Member?
Madam Chair, I'm going to move approval because it fits in the surrounding area, but I would like to add the conditions that came from design review, align the transom windows on the east and west elevations, all columns to be round as noted, the roof and eave detail to match the existing, and the concrete accent base to be used around the building.
A motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Can I call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray, Scott,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carried. All right, we have a couple demolitions. Let's go pretty quickly on these. The first one is Rebecca. I'm gonna have to swear you in, but this is a proposed demolition of a 2.5-story structure. This is at 2171 East 83rd Street. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and present pretty quickly.
So it's just a 2.5-story demolition of a residential house. You can go to the next slide. We're going to demolish house, haul away debris, bring in filter, grade out lot, and plant grass. Next slide. Here is a map view of where the house is at. Next slide. Some exterior photos. Next slide. Interior photos. Next slide. And the plans for after the demolition, we're going to plant grass for the owner.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I move approval due to the condition of the structure.
And I second.
I have a motion and a second. Can call the roll?
Anthony. Downey,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray, Scott,
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. A second demolition, this is at 3872 East 65th Street. Steve is here from the Land Bank. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, you can go pretty quickly too.
Sure. This property is located, as you said, at 3872 East 65th Street. The Cuyahoga Land Bank acquired the property at the end of May with the coordination of the Polish American Cultural Center and Slavic Village Development. It was previously owned by Fannie Mae after a foreclosure action. Our intention is to demolish the structure. It's fire damage throughout, hold for development, or transfer to either the city, the cultural center, or the CDC, whichever best serves its future use. It was previously approved by the East Design Review Committee unanimously. The presentation will show its current condition. This is a picture of the exterior of the property. Go to the next slide. Just shows it's where it is in the neighborhood across the street from the Polish American Cultural Center aerial view. The next slide will show just pictures of the street views. There's some residential, but there's some commercial structures in the neighborhood as well. The next slide will show the exterior pictures. There's some damage. It's a really small lot. There's no garage or driveway. It doesn't have parking on that side of the street. It's on the other side. There's vacant lots on either side too.
Okay, thank you.
The next slide will show some interior pictures. There was a large fire in the back. It really damaged
I think we're good. You're just gonna plant and seed it, right?
That's the plan. And yeah,
Okay.
and then hold and,
Right.
use
Yep.
for the, use for the
And
neighborhood.
removing any curb cuts or anything. I don't think there are any, but,
There
okay.
aren't any on this.
Yeah, there aren't any. Okay.
Madam Chair, I move approval due to the condition of the structure. Approval for
And I
demolition.
second.
Motion and a second, call the roll.
Downing,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Terry Scott,
Yes.
Slide.
Yes.
Motion carries. East
Thank you.
Design Review Slavic Village projecting sign, a sign variance is needed. This is seeking final approval at 5001 Lee Avenue. I think staff's gonna present as well as Anthony from Master Craftsman. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do. Chairperson, this
okay.
is Marilyn Moshinsky from Slavic Village Development. The Andreolis had to go because they had to take their child to the emergency center for a checkup. So you just got me, which is our sign on their building. So I'm happy to present also.
Okay. Did you say yes when I swear you in?
I did.
Okay. I think staff's gonna go first. Please, go ahead pretty quickly.
All right, good morning, Shannon Leonard, Chief City Planner, City Planning Commission. So the applicant is proposing a 40 square feet projecting informational sign for 5001 Fleet Avenue. This kind of caused a little bit of consternation among zoning and trying to determine if this is public art because it's a historical sign somewhere else in the building and it's going on a vacant building. So the question was, is this something that should be treated as public art, or do we really want to authorize variances for off-premise signage that is oversized? But moving forward, essentially, you're just deciding, City Planning Commission has the ability to grant variances to be more strict or less strict with the regulations in Chapter 350 based on design compatibility. So they may vary only if such variation will result in signage that is better suited to the design of the subject property. Does they follow design guidelines approved by you all and City Council, and is it the minimum necessary to ensure design compatibility? So the proposed sign here is a 40 square foot informational sign. It is a sign that is essentially stating, hey, welcome to the neighborhood, this is Slavic Village, but it's not really promoting anything that's based on like goods or services. It's not for gain, and it's a sign that's on a building, which going down the road, if this building does ever become full, they will have to come back to you for any type of wall signs or projecting signs if you grant the variances today. This also allows for the 40 square feet. It is 8 feet in height and it sits out 5 feet from the wall surface. So they would need a variance for the projection for an informational sign. Informational signs are generally only allowed to be 4 square feet. They cannot be projecting, they have to be wall signs. They do extend more than 4 feet from the wall surface, so typical projecting signs aren't supposed to extend more than 4 feet. So they're extending it by a foot. And then they're also 8 feet in height. Generally, we don't allow projecting signs to be greater than 6 feet. And so this is the location within Slavic Village of West 50th and or East 50th and Fleet. Just giving you some context of the building itself. As you can see, there's no signage currently on this building as opposed to the event. And so again, the considerations here, does this result in signage that is better suited? Does it result in signage that follows Planning Commission standard of design guidelines? And are these variances the minimum necessary to ensure design compatible with the surrounding properties and the residential neighborhood. And then as it relates to public art, I did discuss with Tara Petras, our design coordinator for public art, and decided that because it is Slavic Village and it is kind of like a welcome to the neighborhood sign, that it wouldn't necessarily reflect as public art since it's not really artistic in nature and it is promoting the neighborhood. There were conversations about, was this the appropriate way to welcome people to the neighborhood?
All right, Marilyn, you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, so this sign did come to City Planning Design Review back in 2018 on another building. Unfortunately, COVID and everything else. So then this sign came back up because it's been preserved. We bubble wrapped it in the meantime, got it preserved because this sign we saved off of a demolition building that was on Fullerton and East 71st and Old Polish Village sign that Judge Bianca of Happy Memory had made sure that I saved and preserved, and we had rehabbed it. So we had found some money from his foundation and rehabbed the sign, bubble wrapped it, so we found the right building. This building came into play because it is a white box program through the Economic Development Department. They received a $50,000 grant. So we're working with them to find a tenant in the first floor. The sign just made sense because when it was approved back in 2018, it was down on 57th and Fleet, so it was kind of in the middle of the street. This is the entranceway to Fleet Avenue, so it's right off of the freeway, so folks will be able to see it. So we're thrilled to have it on this. I know the structural engineer had put through, and this is the best location for the sign because you can see it coming both east and west.
Okay, thank you. Commission member?
I'll move approval, Madam Chair, for the Slavic Village projecting sign at 5001 Fleet Avenue, because it is the gateway of Slavic Village.
It is for their
And
The 36 square foot area
and it's a 36 square foot variant
for off-premise.
for off-premise.
Thank
And taller than, or extending more than 4 feet.
And it's extending more than 4 feet from the wall surface.
And 6 feet.
And 6 feet in height.
So sorry.
So
We got it.
we got it. If you don't practice, you
I
can't
will
do it.
second.
Thank you.
Take the words out of my mouth.
Right, I'm gonna vote yes, but I will tell you, I wonder if this building does get redeveloped, if it isn't confusing, or you don't think that it's Slavic Village's offices, the CDC. So it's great. I love the sign. I love that you're using it. I just really wonder about confusion later, especially if somebody were to do something transformative to the building. But this is your call. So call the order or the motion.
Yes.
Curtis,
Yes.
Ray Scott,
Yes.
Slide.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all.
We have the 2023-017. This is the interdisciplinary science engineering building seeking conceptual approval on 2049 Martin Luther King Drive. I believe, is this Case Western's project?
Yes, it is, Madam Chair. We have
Okay.
representatives from HGA and Case Western.
Okay. And this is for conceptual approval. So I need to swear anyone in who's speaking. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer for the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Yes.
Okay, hold on one second, just temperature. Commission members, how are we doing on time? We might need another 15 minutes
That's fine.
after this. All right, can you guys go fairly quickly?
We certainly
We have-
can.
We have
We
a couple
certainly
more
can.
items. And it's not that
Yes.
we don't care about this because it's such an important project. But we'll give you some conceptual thoughts, but we'll be seeing you again, obviously.
Yes, you
So,
will. All right.
okay.
Thank you, Commission members, Madam Chair. My name is Joanne Brown. I'm with Case Western Reserve University. I just want to start with letting you know that this project has been on our strategic agenda since our 2015 master plan. And so it's now coming to fruition. And we have also met preliminarily with the PetBot group. Having said that, I will now turn it over to HGA to present the project conceptually. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. So this project is going to be a approximately 190,000 gross square foot research building that will replace an existing building on campus called Yost Hall. Yost will be completely demolished, and in its place, the ISEB, as we're referring to it, will house about 500 occupants. That's researchers, faculty, students. It is important to note that this is a research-only building, not teaching. So we don't have the typical class schedule of folks streaming out of the building. The building will take advantage of consolidating some loading function for this area of campus that will be shown in some site plans coming up. And note also that the siting is putting the building closer to MLK Drive than other CASE buildings in this area of campus. Project budget is about 200 million and is targeting LEED Gold with a LEED Platinum stretch goal. If you go to the next slide, you can see where the site sits. Yost Hall, that tiny red dot in the middle, along MLK Junior Drive, nearest to the corner of Euclid Avenue. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see a little more zoomed in. Yost is in the middle, the long, narrow building there, with Tomlinson is the kind of dirty white roof to the north there, and Wickenden is the building to the south. Go to the next slide. So real briefly, site context plan. Peter will provide more detail on this, but you can see the building footprint here. We do have plans to connect to both Tomlinson and Wickenden, either below grade or above grade. But you'll note a lot of site improvements happening along the right-of-way there that were very well received by the PetBot, as well as what Peter will describe more as a gracious, accessible gateway that welcomes folks up onto the CASE Quad and really connects MLK Junior Drive to that beautiful CASE Quad. Next slide. So this is just the existing conditions, the site survey. Again, there are existing loading docks off of both Wickenden and Tomlinson. Those will be demolished in service of creating one new centralized loading dock to serve all three of these buildings. Next slide. Those loading docks are seen in the upper left and upper right photos. So those functions will go away. And just some additional photos from the MLK Junior Drive side of the site. Next slide. And these are some of the conditions on the CASE Quad, just indicating some of the varied architecture that exists on the CASE Quad today. With that, I will pass to Peter.
Good afternoon, everybody. Peter Cook, Design Principal with HGA. Thank you very much for your time. We'll try to go very quickly here. Just to orient you, CASE Quad at the top of the screen, Martin Luther King Boulevard at the bottom, Tomlinson and Wickenden as indicated off to the left and the right. The ISEB, of course, sitting right there in the middle. We've delicately positioned this in between the two to accommodate the new consolidated loading dock, which is between the ISEB and Wickenden. And what that allows us to do is to create a more generous gateway between Tomlinson and the ISEB, which is going to be able to welcome people both from the CASE Quad to MLK and vice versa. And it's oriented in such a way that as you move up that gateway, you'll be oriented towards one of the iconic buildings on campus, Delbert Hall. What we're also seeing is that there's an opportunity, we think, to be able to link some of the existing public artwork on the CASE Quad to that proposed gateway with additional public art, maybe in that area, but also connecting that to the public art that is actually in the greenway along MLK Boulevard. So we think that's a really good opportunity. I think there are a number of details I'd like to talk about, but actually just a couple key things here. One is that red line running right through the middle. That's the riparian setback line. And we're very much aware of that. We are building not in it, but on it, or actually technically above it. So we're about 1 foot above the 100-year floodplain, which is where the ground plane is. And then from that point, the building goes up from there. So that's a critical part of what we're doing as well. Happy to go over some other details, but maybe we should go up to the next slide here. Actually, I apologize. Let me go back because I did want to hit on a few things along MLK because that's an important part of what we're trying to do is to create a nicer space along MLK Boulevard. You'll note that there's an existing sidewalk which runs right along the curb line of MLK. It's very uncomfortable. We're proposing to move that sidewalk inboard and provide a landscape buffer inside. We're also proposing to relocate, or excuse me, to shift, if you will, the curb cut at the bottom of your screen towards the bottom right, which is about 75 feet. Well, the current one is about 75 feet to the left of where we're showing it here. So we're adjusting that curb cut and then adjusting certain crosswalks across MLK. There's a minor adjustment to the existing traffic light that we're proposing as well. We think that that will help to facilitate movement in and out of that area. Now we can move on to the next one, please. This is, we're going to show you two quick views of the building as it's designed right now. It is very much in progress. Things will evolve, no doubt. But here's where we are right now at the end of schematic design. From the Case Quad side, what you're seeing is this building. It's broken down in terms of its overall massing. That was a goal of it. We could have, built something that appears much larger, but by breaking it down in this way, we're attempting to relate it from a massing standpoint to its adjacent buildings. And what you're seeing again off to the right is Tomlinson, and between Tomlinson and the ISEB is that gateway we were just talking about. So that's an important part about it, breaking down the overall scale. Right now, the materiality we're looking at is brick, a Norman brick, but detailed in a very modern and contemporary way at the base of the building. Up above in the upper left in the taller volume would be a UHPC, ultra high performance concrete panels, and those would probably be very textured. And then the darker color right now is a metal panel, which will have louvers for the upper levels there. Let's move on to the next one. And the next one shows what the building will look like from MLK. And we want to try to break this notion of having this kind of almost a fortress appearance of the buildings along MLK, along at the Case Quad. So we're trying to very much to create a very friendly face to MLK, something that reveals some of the things that are happening inside the building. We can get into the details of the plans, but one of the things we're trying to do is move some of the labs inboard of the exterior and provide social spaces, circulation spaces, write-up spaces at the perimeter. So you see activity happening along the perimeter of the building. And right in the center of this image is a multi-story winter garden that is going to rise from this ground level you're seeing here all the way up to the top, and that will be daylit, bringing daylight deep into the building. We can move through all of these very quickly. This is simply just details of what you've just seen here. Basically, your floor to floors are about 16 feet floor to floor. Here you can see that space in between that's daylit. And of course, we can talk about the plans if we'd like. So,
can you just, I don't think we need to go through and too much. Can you just, on the first floor plan, can you talk about the uses along the perimeter on the first floor?
Sure. The first floor being, let me
I mean, the quad level, basically.
Right, exactly, right. So what you're seeing, and that's just for orientation, the ground level is off to the left. That's roughly speaking at the MLK level. The first floor level is off to the right, and that's approximately at the quad level. So to that point, the main entrance is about halfway down in between there. So that's how you're going to be able to enter the building. Off to the left of that, the plan left, is what we're calling an academic, living room. So it'll be a very active and vibrant space, highly visible from the Case Quad. And off to the right is help me out with that term we were calling it.
Yep, that's a forum, multi-purpose gathering space. Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And then right in that middle, running sort of plan north-south, is that multi-story winter garden I was talking about earlier.
So I have a question. Is there any ability for, let's say, that gathering space and the exterior space? And I walk this all the time. I think the quad's a pretty interesting space, but none of the buildings actually because they're institutional buildings, really activate the quad. You just walk by them unless you're going to them. And I just wonder if there's a way to think about the zoning, interior, and security in a way that that space could have kind of like outdoor seating and operable windows, and it feel more like something that would attract people to also intersect with people who might be here in research. So I'm actually talking about more of a public use, let's say cafe kind of area that the general public could use and not access the building. Because this could be the middle point in the quad and really get people to gather outside and sit outside and feel a little more retail on the exterior, if you will. So I don't know if that's possible, just a thought.
Indeed, that is possible, and that's certainly the intent, to be able to open up that visually so that people are welcomed into that space along the quad. And indeed, there is a cafe that is being planned for that academic living room.
Where is that cafe in the plan?
It will be geographically, if you can see in sort of the upper, I'm not sure that I can point here, but there's a kind of an angled staircase off to the upper left.
Yeah.
It is sort of planned south of that, just a little bit. So
But
again,
then it won't be public. I meant put it on the front part and it actually being publicly accessible, not within the building, because only if you have a swipe card will you be able to come in, basically. Is there a way to zone that onto the quad side so it's truly public, like a tenant space, and starts to activate the quad versus interior to the building? Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense. The intention is that the building has a security line internal to the building. So that cafe and that academic living room are public.
And can you also, instead of it just being visual, could there be, is there just going to be one entrance versus that space feeling more sort of public out to outdoor seating? Could there be an outdoor plaza, if you will, that you could go straight out to? I guess spilling it out a little bit. Does that make sense?
There actually is a second entrance. We can get into some of the details on the ground level floor plan off to the far left, as almost part of that gateway we were talking about. There's an entrance over there, and that allows that staircase to be able to link those two spaces. So you can enter both from the quad, but also from that gateway, and then be able to participate in all those spaces. So we expect it to be a very lively and visible space.
Okay. I guess I won't belabor the point because this is still conceptual. I guess really helping to break this down as feeling in the next phase less institutional on that front, and so that it's very clear to people that this might be a space that they could use on the exterior. It's just not right now. It's an institutional building, and if you know you can come in there, you will, as opposed to this is a pretty amazing use for you guys to have on the ground floor. Why not make it really visible to the quad and make it feel like a kind of public cafe? Even if that's visually or with outdoor seating or sign or how that works, I think it'd be a missed opportunity if you don't. But I won't belabor it because we have to move on. And so the councilman has a question.
Oh, well, I'll jump onto your comment and just say, as someone who didn't go to Case, is from the other side of town. If I were walking through Case, I would not know the Jolly Scholar was there. You know, unless I stumbled inside of the building. So I think the intent is kind of like, I love the Jolly Scholar, but can we, whatever that use is, can it have an exterior door direct in so that there's more of a recognition? You're not having to walk into a building. It would be obvious to a passerby, a visitor, that there's an option here without feeling like you're, because even though it is public, it feels private, you know. So that I will, my one comment and then a question for the director. The comment is, I've honestly only ever been on this quad once in my life. I was struck by kind of the proximity of how beautiful it is, and I've been on MLK more times than I can count, but like, you know, and the proximity of where I was to MLK, but also the rapid. So I guess I want to push Case as projects happen over time how we can increase connectivity, that if someone is getting off the Rapid and wanting to walk to Uptown, that it feels there's a natural way for them to come through the quad, whereas right now the quad feels like a dead end, that like, it's like a cul-de-sac, that if you don't have a reason to go into the cul-de-sac, you're not gonna go that way. So I applaud the gateway. It's a little further north of where I'd love for it to be, but I guess the only request is to make sure through signage visually that this does feel like this is very obviously a path up into the quad and to points beyond. It's so that is more pleasant than walking down MLK and hanging a right at Euclid. So that's as we could explore in like the landscaping plan and other ways to make that gateway very, very prominent, and then really let that spirit of this continue moving forward if there's future projects is the comment. The question is, I know the riparian setback is because of Doan Brook and Doan Brook's culvert, and so it's sort of like arguably a moot point, but are there any zoning or other requirements that they're gonna need by building over the setback, just so we can set expectations? It's not to say we shouldn't do it, but I know that we have passed legislation about riparian setbacks, but I can't remember specifically what the requirements were if you were wanting to build within the setback.
It's a great question. I think we'll have to look into
Okay.
it and research that and get back.
Okay, again, it's a culverted brook, so it's, I'm not worried, you're in the 100-year floodplain, but you're not, the 100-year flood is not gonna happen here, it's gonna happen upstream and downstream. So, with that, are there any other comments? I'll make a motion. I will move approval, inserting the condition to, I will move conceptual approval of item EC 2023-017, inserting the conditions of exploring direct exterior connectivity into the cafe space and landscaping plans and how it emphasizes the gateway. Done.
And I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Can you call the roll?
Yes.
Curry.
Yes.
Right, Scott.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, we'll see you soon.
Thank you
It's an
very
amazing
much.
Important and
Thank you.
amazing project, by the way. So very excited for it.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so we have a mandatory referral and some other items, administrative. Can we do them really fast?
Yes,
Okay.
and we have the mandatory referral team here. Michael Bosak. That's right.
So I did notice that, I noted on the chair about the beauty review.
Okay, this is for the ODOT presentation?
Yes.
It was
this
tabled?
from March 2023.
Okay. Can we have a motion to remove from the table for 244-2023?
Madam Chair, I will move to remove this ordinance 244-2023 from the table. You
I
just said-
second.
Motion and second, call the roll?
Delby,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Right, Scott,
Yes.
Slide.
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
So Commissioner Sitowski is here, also the ODOT team. We were very recently before you in May to talk about the surface level and the bridge cap. And so this is consent legislation to allow for the project to move forward. So Dave, I believe you're gonna take it away?
Should I know you probably want to go ahead and just swear myself in, or?
No, not for these mandatory referrals, you don't have to. But really, we know this, so you can move really fast.
Okay, yeah, so this is, we're throwing out, this is one part of our Cleveland Rainbow project. This project is East 25th, will include East 22nd Street Bridge over I-90, which we got a wide deck with some pedestrian enhancements on it. You just keep moving through the slide. Our time frame hopefully is this begin construction in 2025. Keep going, next slide. Really the focus of our stakeholder involvement has been the connection from the central neighborhood to downtown through the East 22nd Street corridor. Next slide. We spent quite a bit of time over the last 6 to 9 months kind of going through a stakeholder process with Councilman Starr. Did come to East Design Review and Planning Commission in May.
And is this just to begin the actual engineering work?
Yes, it was standard boilerplate
Right,
consent
sure.
legislation where ODOT needs to work in city street right away.
Okay. I mean, I don't think we need more than that, do we?
No. Madam Chair, I'll move approval of this mandatory referral to give consent, City of Cleveland, to the Director of Transportation of the State of Ohio to construct central interchange improvements and authorizing agreements. Need a second.
A second.
A motion and a second?
Prior to a vote, I would just like to state for the record, I'm voting no on this. I believe that the East 22nd Bridge project is great. But I also believe that I do not support the project that is bringing us to the East 22nd Bridge. I believe that ODOT is spending a lot of energy trying to move traffic at 70 miles an hour through our central city, on our interstates. Cities have traffic. The Maryland Department of Transportation is not building the Capital Beltway again and again and again to try to resolve traffic. There's traffic. And a couple weeks ago, coming around Dead Man's Curve, a car didn't slow down at the curve coming from the downtown Shoreway, nearly T-boned the car with my kid in it where he would have sat. And it's because ODOT, I think, is allowing traffic to move through our central city too quickly while we're trying to work to slow down traffic on our side streets. We are compelling people to speed on the Interbelt by making improvements like this. People do not die when cars have fender benders at 30 miles an hour during rush hour. So I agree with the bridge. I don't agree with the rest of this project. I think that at this point, the Interbelt Bridge is built. We are now just searching for projects when we could be investing in public transportation.
It's a good point. Although I will say the 22nd Street path itself, individually
beautiful.
outside of
It's
that, is
beautiful.
an important
Yes.
piece for really connecting a neighborhood that's been disconnected. So, but you ought to think about what he's saying because it's true. Can we call the roll?
Downey,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sly.
No.
Motion carries. And I think what you're really asking is so many years later, should we be stepping back and reevaluating the demand issues? Big picture. That's what you're really saying, right?
I'm not convinced that traffic during rush hour needs to move at 50 miles an hour come hell or high water.
Right.
A periodic delay in traffic is something that happens in cities. It's a lot of taxpayer money that's not going towards other projects for a minor inconvenience, in my opinion.
Administrative approvals, there's only 3. Take a quick look at them and then we'll need a motion.
I will move approval on the administrative approvals.
And I will second.
A motion and a second, call the roll.
Downey,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sly.
Yes.
Motion carries. We have 2 public art projects. One is at East 2023, it is 2023-025. This is at 3705 East 117th Street. It's a mural. East 116th Street. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth is you shall answer to the penalty of perjury. This was for Artiste Smith.
She actually isn't able to be here. She sent a representative down Woodruff. I believe he's driving, so we may be pulling over.
You want to just, okay. There you
Hello, I'm Donald Woodruff. I'm with the Union Miles Development Corporation. I'll be pinch hitting for Miss Smith today.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see here.
Well, don't wreck if you're driving. Well, they can change the slides. Just tell us a little bit about this. Be safe. All right, let's see the mural. Or maybe, I don't know, Tara, if you want to also give us this context real quick. Go ahead.
I'll preserve.
Okay. Okay, all right. Go ahead.
Okay. So
Donald?
yeah, Union Miles Development Corp has been working with the owner on this project for a couple of months now. They're pretty new. They're a pretty new owner, a restaurant owner in the neighborhood, and Union Miles actually is paying for it. It'll be 13 feet wide by 10 feet tall. Pretty much an aerosol airbrush application. Thinking about 2 or 3 days for the total application. In total, the funding for it is about $4,500 from UMDC. They wanted to get started sometime this week, but again, going through the, going through the appropriate things. We probably won't be for another week or two. So, again, we, looking at the actual mural, make life more flavorful, just connecting it with the restaurant itself.
And the image, this is the image that'll be painted there,
Yes, ma'am.
10 feet by 13 feet?
Yeah.
Okay, Sarah?
This was approved by East Design while I was on vacation a couple of weeks ago. They did an approval. I'm fine with the mural on the building. I was a little concerned that the artwork seemed to almost duplicate another artist's work, but if that's what they would do, that's.
We don't necessarily get into content here,
Right.
so. Okay.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of East 2023-025 mural at 3705 East 116th Street.
I'll second.
Motion and second, call the roll.
Downey,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McLean Scott,
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, last item is a mural at East 12th Place Alley. This is in downtown at East 12th Street between 1228 Euclid and 118 Euclid, 118 Euclid. Drew, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. I'll be as quick as humanly possible. I know where we're at, but really excited to present this towards you, for you, in consideration. Two murals that will be done by an artist visiting from France on East 12th Place in our downtown core. One will be on the Athlon building and one will be on the Halley building. Whenever possible, if you could advance some of the slides, I'll show you what we have proposed, please.
This one.
Do we have any slide?
Oh, there's a connection issues right now.
Sorry, I can't quite hear in the room, and I don't see them changing on my screen, but I see them on the background of your screen in person.
Let's just utilize the back screen then. I think we're having some connection issues with regard to our main screen. So commission members, if you wouldn't mind turning around, apologies for the technical issues.
Great.
Yeah.
So what I believe you're looking at is, sorry, I can see very, very small, but what I believe you're looking at is the first one, again, Yosh. This is being fully funded by Graffiti Heart, the nonprofit that you saw before, which does great work here in the city of Cleveland. So again, one will be this colorful kind of faces, and then the other one will be a little bit of a theme-based, it'll be a theme of the city of Cleveland. You can see hopefully in one of the renderings it says J'adore Cleveland, I love Cleveland in French. We have commitment and enthusiastic support from the ownership. The contingency from design review yesterday, of course, was to get written permission for approval, and we will certainly provide that at the administrative level. Would be happy to provide any more information, but hopefully that gives you an idea.
So it's that mural on this wall. Is that what I'm saying?
Yes,
Yes.
and it's an alley, right? It's an alley.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that one that I believe you're looking at is on the Halley building, correct?
And the first one was on the out.
Why didn't, can we see the first one again? I just didn't see the
Yeah,
first.
that's that one down.
That's on there.
So they're facing each other.
Essentially facing each other. It's not going to be directly across, it'll be a few feet down.
Okay. Okay.
There were some committee recommendations. Hopefully we can grab it on the screen. Or do you want to comment?
Yeah, the positions from the complex design review were based on our recommendations that the artwork should stay within the confines of the brick and not extend onto the architectural features such as the limestone, sandstone, marble, or architectural details that are decorative elements. They also need to provide a letter from the building owners if they have permission to install them. And also, they need to verify with SHPO that the historic tax credits that were being received on the outbound building have reached the 5-year point, so it doesn't have to go through SHPO review. If they aren't able to do that, they are able to remain on a comparable wall on the alley instead.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval with the conditions from design review that Tara has just recited for the group.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, call the roll.
Downey,
Yes.
Hurd,
Yes.
Prescott,
Yes.
Bunce.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, I think we are complete.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Unless there's anything urgent on the director's report, we might have to run.
And I think the quick thing, thank you, there's no slides this week because of the short week and vacation, but form-based code is still posted online. Public comment closes July 12th. And we have a few key pieces of legislation that'll be being introduced on Wednesday, including the townhouse code that you voted on earlier this year, and then also transit-oriented development and transportation demand management piece that will be coming back for you. Also wanted to add that we will be adding to the planning commission, our empty seat. We have named a person to fill the 7th seat. They will be going through the mayoral council committee review on Tuesday, hopefully with passage on Wednesday. So at the next commission, we'll have a full
Calendar's not out yet.
Yeah, it might be now.
That's all. Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank
you. Is it a
Thanks for-
secret? Can we know?
It was, Andrew Sargent from Cleveland United Progress and Ward 15 resident.
Great. Good to see you.
Thank you. Long agenda. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all.